They didn't really want to up sticks, leave their house, all their friends, the graves of their ancestors. For what? Israel was as strange as the moon to them. But they'd heard it would be better for the kids, that they'd have computers in the schools. Eventually, they took the plunge and arranged their modest worldly goods out in their newspaper kiosk to sell. I still have their little teapot, painted with orange and blue flowers, and I hope everything worked out for them in Tel Aviv. Abram at the synagogue in Bukhara has toyed with the idea of leaving. If I had 2 lives, I might go over there to live my second life, he says. But a human being comes into this world only once. I have been Abram Borisovich here for 74 years. When would I become Abram Borisovich over there? How long would it take for them to know me?
Monica Whitlock. And that's all for this programme. I'm Max Pearson. The producer was Farhana Haider. And we'll be back again next weekend here on the BBC World Service.
That was the BBC programme from our own correspondent.
Good morning. Welcome to Information Radio. I'm Margot Watt, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa this morning. Finally, a break in our weather. Isn't that nice? We'll take a look at the complete forecast in just a moment. All of the day's headlines, though, first from our Winnipeg newsroom. And Megan Ketchison is in this morning. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning. Well, firefighters in Winnipeg battled 2 back-to-back fires in the same stretch of the city's north end yesterday. The city says crews responded to the first blaze around 1:30 p.m. The fire broke out in a mixed commercial and residential building on Selkirk near Salter. Firefighters tackled the fire from inside, brought it under control, but then around 4 o'clock, crews responded to another fire in the same block, and they were expected to be there for most of the night. And the Canadian Museum for Human Rights was at standing room only yesterday, with hundreds of people marking 3 years' war in the Ukraine. For more than a dozen people who stood outside waving Ukrainian flags, holding signs while singing and chanting. And we'll hear from some of the people that were there coming up at 6:30.
All right, Megan, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Well, today on the program, we will talk a lot about an anniversary, the 3rd anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine and the start of the war there. Since then, hundreds of thousands of people have died. So what is ahead now? We'll speak with a freelance journalist based in Kyiv about what's happening there this morning. Also, all 4 federal Liberal leadership candidates are taking to the stage this week. There will be a French debate tonight and then an English debate tomorrow. So how each of these hopefuls to succeed Justin Trudeau perform in those debates could help decide who will become Canada's next Prime Minister. We'll hear more about what is at stake for each of the candidates and what we should be watching for over the next couple of nights. Also, it was back in the 80s, he was the second black goalie to ever play in the NHL. Coming up, we'll catch up with Pokey Reddick. He'll reflect on his time as a Winnipeg Jet and what it was like back then to be a black player in the National Hockey League. Winnipeg weather is looking very nice for today, milder after that very cold stretch of weather we had. 4 degrees right now at the Forks with just a slight chance of rain today. The very latest on your forecast, on traffic this morning, and all the day's news and stories we have for you. That's coming up on Information Radio.
I'm Talia Schlanger, sitting in for Tom Power. In their new sitcom, Canadian actors and writers Meredith McNeil and Jennifer Whalen play 2 women launching a new podcast while navigating the ups and downs of menopause. They'll tell you about their new show, Small Achievable Goals.
Where's Judy Bloom when you need her?
How are you there, God? It's me, menopause.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. World leaders are in Kyiv today. Ukraine is marking 3 years since Russia's full-scale invasion. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau arrived early this morning before joining Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for a defense and unity meeting. Trudeau pledged Canada's ongoing support for Ukraine. The CBC's Anna Cunningham has more from London.
It's an important day for all of us to be here.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau greeting the Ukrainian delegation at Kyiv station, arriving by train from Poland, still the safest way to enter the country 3 years on from Russia's full invasion.
Prime Minister, please, this way.
Thank you.
The bursts of air raid sirens across Kyiv this morning did not stop this meeting. President Volodymyr Zelensky sitting with Prime Minister Trudeau and 12 other European leaders, other countries joining remotely. Trudeau describing Zelensky as brave and resilient.
You continue to inspire me and tens of millions of my fellow citizens back home in Canada.
Prime Minister Trudeau making clear who the aggressor is in this war.
Russia's actions are nothing short of a direct attack against the rules-based international order.
Announcing further Canadian military aid, Trudeau said there was no turning back.
We cannot return to an era where might makes right.
The Prime Minister says everything must be done to enable Ukraine to secure a just and lasting peace.
A peace that cannot be achieved without Ukrainians at the table.
This meeting in Kyiv is a show of strength, coming after a week in which the US President Donald Trump appeared to soften his country's stance towards Russia. Trudeau's words echoed by many other leaders from the Baltic nations to Germany, Finland and Japan, all renewing their support for Ukraine and for lasting peace in Europe. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
Israeli tanks are moving into the occupied West Bank for the first time in decades. Israel's defense minister has warned troops will stay for a year in parts of the territory and that tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians who fled cannot return. Israel says it's determined to stamp out militant groups, but Palestinian authorities say this latest move is a dangerous escalation. Sasha Petrusik has more from Jerusalem.
Tanks roll across the occupied West Bank for the first time in more than 2 decades. Israel's show of force against what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says is increased activity by Hamas and other groups in refugee camps. We are fighting terror on all fronts, he says, and will stay as long as necessary. Israel ramped up its forces here in the wake of 3 bus bombs near Tel Aviv this week. The camps, home for Palestinian families originally displaced by Israel's creation in 1948, have long been strongholds for militant groups. They've now been mostly emptied by the Israeli military, which has destroyed houses and torn up infrastructure, forcing 40,000 Palestinians to move. Hundreds of fighters and civilians have been killed here in the past months. Israel's settlers are pushing hard for it to annex this territory, though even its occupation is considered illegal by most countries and the World Court. Tensions have spiked since the Gaza conflict started. It's all because of the hatred they have for us, says Palestinian Mazrin Bakri in Hebron. Israel insists the moves are driven by security needs, though many in government are also pushing for annexation. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
German Conservative opposition leader Friedrich Merz is claiming victory. Merz's party won 208 of the 630 seats in parliament. That means he will need to establish a coalition to form a majority government. Jens Spahn is the vice chair of Merz's Christian Democratic Union Party.
Well, we do have a clear mandate for Friedrich Merz. He will become our next chancellor here in Germany. Olaf Scholz is done, and his government, his coalition. And now we will have negotiations in the upcoming days and weeks.
One thing Merz has made clear, that coalition will not involve the AfD, Alternative for Germany party. The far-right party had its strongest showing since the Second World War, winning a total of 152 seats. Liberal leadership candidates will face off tonight in the first of 2 debates of this short contest. The French language debate is scheduled for Montreal this evening. 4 candidates will be on stage: Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, Karina Gould, and Frank Baylis. Janice McGregor will be watching. She joins us now from our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what are we expecting from tonight's debate?
Marcia, past French language debates have been opportunities to test the proficiency of bilingual Anglophones against their Francophone competitors. But none of the federal Liberal Party's top Francophones threw their hat into this ring. So, as we listen tonight, we're just going to have to imagine how the bilingualism of these four contestants could match up against Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet in an election debate. The Quebec audience tonight is absolutely critical for the Liberal Party's fortunes. Public opinion surveys suggest that a significant part of the Liberals' recent uptick in support could be attributable to voters now thinking twice about voting for the Sovereigntist Party. Party organizers considered a long list of social and economic issues as potential topics for this debate, but they landed on four final themes. Canada's place in the world, a first round that's going to include Canada-US relations. Then, competing ideas for growing a strong economy. Third, supporting Canadians, discussing affordability measures, housing, healthcare. And finally, climate action. Party supporters are going to be filling in a ranked ballot, which means that if no frontrunner wins a majority of first choices, being a party's second choice might be critical. So it'll be interesting to see how aggressive the contestants get against each other tonight, or whether they're going to channel it all instead on the two men waiting in the wings for whoever wins this thing. Pierre Poilievre, whose Conservative Party still leads across national polls, and Donald Trump, whose ongoing threats have practically taken over the political agenda.
Someone we won't see on the stage tonight is former candidate Ruby Dalla. She was disqualified on Friday. Where does that stand now?
Late yesterday, she announced she's filing an appeal of the party's decision to disqualify her from this race after an extraordinary meeting on Friday where party officials unanimously found 10 violations of the party's rules. We still don't know exactly what those violations are, but the party president called them extremely serious, suggesting she may have violated the Canada Elections Act, failed to disclose what he called material facts, and filed inaccurate financial reports. Dalla says these violations are fabricated, fictitious, and fake. And she says they're meant to complete Mark Carney's coronation as leader.
All right. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Some Hyundai drivers say their car's paint is peeling off in huge chunks. It's happening to relatively new cars, but owners say getting any help has been difficult. It's a problem happening around the globe, specifically to white Hyundais. Idil Musa with the Go Public team has the story.
It's kind of embarrassing.
Armando Tusi says he feels ashamed driving his 2016 Hyundai Sonata around. He bought the car new, and now, less than 10 years later, the car's paint is peeling, bubbling, flaking off in large chunks.
It's actually quite insane how many people are being impacted by the same issue.
There are Facebook groups with thousands of people with white Hyundais facing the same problem and a proposed class action lawsuit in Quebec.
Driving this around basically is an advertisement against Hyundai.
Emma Nixon in Melbourne, Australia, has been trying for years to get the paint on her peeling 2015 hatchback fixed.
It's been such an upsetting experience. And it looks so bad for the brand.
Experts say the cause is likely delamination or loss of adhesion, which can happen when paint coats aren't applied properly or the incorrect formulation is used. Hyundai Canada's warranty covers paint on vehicles for 3 years or 60,000 kilometers. Chris Wood with Leon's Auto Body in Toronto says it should last much longer.
I believe the paint job should last for as long as you own the vehicle.
Hyundai Canada says their vehicles undergo rigorous testing and manufacturing paint issues are extremely rare. The automaker's U.S. division is offering a white paint warranty extension for certain models. When Go Public reached out, Hyundai Canada said some models sold in Canada are also eligible. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
This month, we're asking you to follow World Report wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us reach new listeners and helps you stay on top of the day's big stories. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and YouTube. I'm Marco Watt, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Ukraine is marking the third anniversary of the day Russia launched its full-scale invasion. We'll talk with a freelance journalist in Kyiv about the devastation and despair there, with no easy end in sight. Also coming up on the show, what's at stake for each of the 4 Liberal leadership candidates with how they fare in the French and English leadership debates. We'll explore that in just a few minutes. Also, the 56th edition of Festival de Voyageurs wrapped up over the weekend. So what were some of the highlights for festival goers? We'll hear what they had to say. That's all ahead on Information Radio. But first, the very latest from our Winnipeg newsroom with the CBC's Megan Ketchison.
Well, good morning. A Winnipeg man says he's out $2,500 after his electric vehicle rebate application was rejected. Brad Clowett bought a used 2020 Ioniq earlier this year. Before he bought it, he made sure it qualified for the province's rebate by using MPI's online eligibility checker. But to his surprise, when he submitted the paperwork for the rebate, it was rejected. MPI says only vehicles 4 years old or younger qualify. And hundreds rallied in Winnipeg yesterday, waving Ukrainian flags and chanting for peace in their home country. The somber ceremony marking the 3-year anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine was yesterday. We'll hear from those who were there coming up at 6:30.
All right, Megan, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Great to have you with us this morning.
Good to hear you.
And good morning as well to our studio crew this morning. May McKillop is our studio technician. Kevin Nipatebo is our YouTube producer. Making me look thin, is he? Let's check. We'll do that later. And our director is Corey Funk, who is also keeping an eye on our lovely forecast that we have today. Good morning, Corey.
Good morning. Yeah, it feels, I used to live on the East Coast. It feels very East Coasty
Does
out
it?
there right now. Yes, so it's February, but it's above 0. 4 degrees it is right now. We're just going to stay there all day. And there's actually even a 30% chance of showers today. So one of those weird days where it's like you kind of wear a rain jacket over a sweater kind of situation. It is going to dip down to -3 overnight, but then warm up again tomorrow to 3 degrees again. And it looks like pretty much up until about Thursday or so, we're going to be looking at highs above 0. And that's pretty much the case for much of southern Manitoba. It's colder as you get kind of further north. I'll have more of a regional forecast later. But right now, Winnipeg, we're sitting at 4 degrees.
Wow. Very nice. What a nice break.
So nice. And I can tell you this, Margot, I was at, I think a lot of Winnipeggers just kind of felt like they could probably breathe this weekend. I know we got out, we like took full advantage. We went out to the river trail on Friday night, went to the zoo for Polar Bear weekend on Friday, went out for a hike. Like I think a lot of Winnipeg, and it was crazy seeing like so many people out and about. It was just so nice to see people.
It was such a relief just to be out.
Oh, was it ever?
Yes.
And I guess turning to your commute right now, I know I ran in this morning and it was like the first time I showed up at work sweaty in a very, very long time. Sidewalks are looking all right. A couple puddles actually starting to form. Roads are looking okay too. But if you're out there, if you're walking, biking, driving, you see something going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. I'll be there to answer. That number, 204-788-3093.
Well, it was a busy weekend at Whittier Park as the 56th edition of Festival de Voyageurs came to a close over the weekend. Festival is known, of course, for its jigging, fiddling, outdoor winter fun, and, of course, the food. CBC Radio Canada's Maggie Wilcox attended the last day yesterday to ask some Manitobans what they enjoyed the most this year.
Lily Rain Brown.
And Lily, what do you think of Festival de Voyageurs?
It's going great.
Do you have a favorite part, a favorite activity that you've done today?
Yes, tubing.
Well, why was tubing so fun?
Because I liked how the guy, he pulled me around the corner, so I just have to walk straight up the hill.
And what do you think of the ice sculptures and the music?
They're great. My dad took a picture of the fish one because at the cabin, my Uncle Jamie takes us fishing, and my dad sent the picture to our Uncle Jamie.
Kelsey Sukic. And what do you think of Festival du Voyageur this year?
We love it so much. This is Kipton's first time at Festival. I'm a teacher at École Rivière Rouge. So we just celebrated Festival du Voyageur at our school this past week, and I wanted to bring him to the actual festival.
And is there a particular activity this year that you found really cool, really fun?
We just came back from the mic presentation. That was lots of fun for Kipton. And we've seen the wood carving so far, but we still have lots more to explore.
And I imagine you've been to Festival a few times. How do you compare this year to previous editions?
Well, this year I'm seeing it through his eyes, so that's really special. And yeah, it's beautiful weather and couldn't ask for more.
Alors, c'est Chloé Fréné-Gagné. Festival is great this year. The sculptures are amazing also. I think with the cold, they really stayed really pristine. Especially there's a fish behind us that's really great with ice, and I don't know, I just thought it was great. And the music is amazing, and like always.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
I'm Peng San. I'm working with the Beaver Tail here, mobile.
How has it been at Festival this year? Have the sales been good?
This year is in the first week is pretty tough. You know, we have really cold weather for the first week, but I still see people coming to check out. That's amazing to see local people support the events like this.
Cool. And what's the most popular beaver tail to buy this year?
This one will be Avalanche, I think.
What's in an avalanche beaver tail?
As a square cheesecake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and the classy, of course.
And you feel that inflation and people having less money has maybe stopped people from buying as many beaver tails, or it's really the cold that stopped people from coming and buying?
It's hard to see, with cold weather, with the economic right now. It's hard just because one, I think you see people come even with minus 40. That's amazing to see. I think that's more important.
Cool. And on a typical day, I guess over the past few days, how many people have you been serving each day? Give me a rough estimate.
Oh, I will see average 300.
Asking, what do you think of Festival du Voyageur? What's your thought? What are your thoughts on it?
We are really grateful to be here. That's all I can say.
Fantastic.
And that was CBC Radio Canada's Maggie Wilcox speaking with people as they enjoyed the last day of Festival du Voyageur.
CBC Music Live at Massey Hall, the most iconic music venue in Canada. An absolute milestone in the careers of musicians who stand on the historic stage. And you have a front row seat. New episodes now available, including highlights from the 2024 Polaris Music Prize Gala featuring two-time winner Jeremy Dutcher.
I have unending gratitude to this music community.
CBC Music Live at Massey Hall. Watch now on CBC Gem.
It is 6:18, 4 degrees in Winnipeg. You're with Information Radio. Winnipeg singer-songwriter Noah Durksen released a new album, Stolen Serenades. It's a collection of songs that shaped him as an artist, including this next tune. Let's have a listen. This is Noah Durksen singing Bob Dylan's Don't Think Twice, It's All Right.
There ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe. You don't know by now. There ain't no use to sit and wonder why. It'll never do somehow. When your rooster starts a crowing at the break of dawn. here anymore. Now I'm thinking and wondering, just walking down the road. I left me a woman, a child I am told. I gave her my heart, but she wanted my soul. I don't think twice, it's alright. So long, honey, baby. Is where I'm bound, I can't tell. Goodbye's just too good a word, babe. And so I'll just say fairly well. Now I ain't saying that you treated me unkind. You could have done much better, but I don't mind. You just kind of wasted my precious time. But don't think twice, it's alright. You just kind of wasted my precious time. But don't think twice, it's alright.
And that is a lovely cover of a Bob Dylan song. That is Winnipeg's Noah Durksen with Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. You can hear more on his new album, Stolen Serenades. 6:23 now. Ukraine is marking the third anniversary of the day Russia sent a convoy of tanks barreling toward its capital, Kyiv. That invasion started the largest military conflict since the end of World War II. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers have died on both sides. Russia's military has decimated Ukrainian cities and towns, and civilians have lost their homes and lives. For more on a war with no easy end in sight, we've reached Jean Dovich. She's a freelance journalist based in Kyiv. Hello.
Good morning.
What's happening to mark the 3-year anniversary where you are today?
Today I'm in Kyiv, and today is the 1097th day of the full-scale war, and it's already 11th anniversary of the war that Russia started in 2014 with the annexion of Crimea and invading of Donetsk and Luhansk cities on the east later in summer 2014. 3 years ago, no one believed that Ukraine would stand up to the Russian military machine, but it has been happening for 3 years already. And to mark the anniversary, our President Volodymyr Zelensky has hailed Ukrainians' absolute heroism and 3 years of resistance. And it was not announced, but European leaders and your Prime Minister Justin Trudeau arrived to Kyiv to show support to Ukraine and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, especially after President of United States Donald Trump started pressure on President Zelensky, calling him a dictator. And so we already know about first results because Trudeau announced new military assistance to Ukraine and European leaders as well. And they say that Ukraine is part of Europe. That's why they're here in Kyiv.
Could you walk us through the sequence of events of February 24th, 2022?
the morning of 24th of February 2022 started for many Ukrainians, citizens of different parts of Ukraine, with missile attacks, and as well Russian troops, Russian tanks came to Kyiv in the direction of Kyiv, and as well they crossed the border between Crimean Peninsula and southern part of Ukraine, Tavria, and it was so scary for many people. Many of them tried to escape immediately. And there were huge lines in the direction of our western borders. And in the same time, many people came to the mobilization offices of our army to receive weapons, to join army, and they joined territory defense. And they were so brave that already on the beginning of April, a Russian army left Kyiv region. But we faced with many atrocities that were committed by Russian soldiers, and these atrocities were systematic. And such names of Ukrainian towns as Bucha, Izum are already known everywhere. And of course, Mariupol. And Mariupol is very important Ukrainian port on the Azov Sea. And we don't know how many people were killed under artillery shellings when they wanted to escape or just survive. But we think that almost or near 20,000 of people there were killed. As well, one of the most high-profile war crimes that were committed by Russia is kidnapping of more than 20,000 of Ukrainian children. On the occupied territories and territories that were under occupation and after were liberated.
How are Ukrainians reacting to the direct negotiations between the U.S. president and the Russian president?
Ukrainians are reacting sharply negative on any negotiations about Ukraine without Ukraine. And the same thoughts are in Europe as well, and such European leaders as Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer, they already argued to Trump not to hold any talks with Russia without Ukraine.
We know that Donald Trump wants a deal to access Ukraine's critical minerals. What's involved there, and how might this issue affect the negotiations?
Yes, they want to receive different minerals that are important for industry, and it's part of negotiations on Ukraine. And in the same time, President Zelensky twice refused to sign any contracts because it looks like not as support of allies as we before thought about United States, but kind of business pressure on Ukraine, and it's very similar to situation that happened after Second World War with Finland. Finland paid reparations to Soviet Union, and looks like now Trump became an ally of Putin, not of Europe and Ukraine.
Thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
That is Jean Dovich, a freelance journalist based in Kyiv, and that's where we reached her. Just ahead of the Winnipeg news here, and traffic-wise, we're not hearing of any big problems so far this morning. But please, if you see anything you think other drivers should know about, just give our commuter line a call. That's 204-788-3093. And still to come on the program, as Canada stares down the threat of tariffs from the U.S., we'll hear how Canadians and Americans are feeling financially. That's up in our business report after the CBC News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg at 6:30. Mostly cloudy and 4 cloudy with a chance of showers today, and it will be windy, a high of 4. The Ukrainian-Canadian Congress of Manitoba says many Ukrainian newcomers are running into challenges with their paperwork. It's happening as they mark today's third-year anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The UCC's Ostap Skripnik says people who came under Canada's emergency visa program have until the end of March to apply for extensions. But he says some newcomers, especially men of military age, are having trouble renewing their passport, something they need for their Canadian documents.
We met with Minister Miller, the immigration minister, a couple of weeks ago when he was in Winnipeg, and I think they're willing to look at solutions within the law or within the regulations to have some understanding of people have these little timing hiccups, let's put it this way.
He says Ukrainian newcomers may also find it harder to become permanent residents. The federal government is cutting overall numbers by 90,000 in 2025 compared to last year. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is among 13 world leaders visiting Kyiv today. They are marking the third anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and they're promising to continue backing the Ukrainian war effort, even as it appears to be losing support of its most important ally, the United States. Chris Brown reports.
This is an important day for all of us to be here.
Canada's Justin Trudeau arrived on the overnight train from Warsaw along with the leaders of Spain and several of the Baltic nations. Canada is heading up the G7 this year, and in his news conference on Sunday, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said he wanted to get Trudeau's insights on Donald Trump, presumably on how to handle tense negotiations over the future of U.S. assistance to Ukraine, and also about what Trump's plans for a peace deal with Russia really are. Trudeau's opening remarks here sounded like a rebuttal to some of Donald Trump's comments. He said Russia is solely responsible for the war, and without being specific, he said Canada will be part of any post-war security guarantees for Ukraine.
Once a just peace is secured, Canada stands at the ready to work with our partners around the world to provide Ukraine the security it needs for the peace to last.
Chris Brown, CBC News, Kyiv.
Well, in Kyiv, Prime Minister Trudeau announced Canada is contributing another 25 light armored vehicles to the Ukrainian military as well. Canada is turning over $5 billion in seized Russian assets. Hundreds of people stood shoulder to shoulder yesterday at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights to mark the three-year war with Ukraine. Vasil Kuslik and his wife were among those in attendance at the rally. They recently became permanent residents here in Manitoba, but Kuslik says his thoughts are back with those at home.
I would like to see my family and my friends, because a lot of my friends are already dead and some of them alive and fight for my country and for everybody there. So I want to just see them and just say thank you for everything.
The event features speeches by Premier Wab Kinew, MPs Terry Duguid and James Bazan, as well as Deputy Mayor Marcus Chambers. Nearly 30,000 Ukrainians have arrived and settled in Manitoba since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Police and fire crews are still at the corner of Selkirk and Salter after two fires in the same building. It started around 1:30 in the afternoon in the mixed-use building with residential upstairs and businesses downstairs. Everyone managed to get out safely before crews arrived. Fire crews put out the fire inside the building and the people were allowed to return to their suites. But then a few hours later, around 4 p.m., firefighters were back at the same building. They started fighting the fire from the inside but had to move outside as the conditions deteriorated. Aerial ladders were brought in to fight the fire. No one was hurt. The city's emergency social services team is helping those who were displaced. And a Winnipeg man says he's out $2,500 after his electric vehicle rebate application was rejected. Brad Clowett bought a 2020 Iconic earlier this year. Before he bought it, he made sure it qualified for the province's rebate by using MPI's online eligibility tracker. To his surprise, when he submitted the paperwork for the $25,000 rebate, it was rejected.
When it totally is clear and concise on the web page that you use this tool to see if you're eligible for the rebate. So that was extremely disappointing.
A spokesperson for MPI says the application was rejected because vehicles must be less than 4 years old when you buy it. They said they'll consider adding more information about the criteria to its eligibility checker. And that's the CBC News from Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you.
With a look at our regional forecast now, Corey Funk is with us. Hey, Corey.
Hello. Yes. So pretty much the further south you are, the warmer it is, and you get further north, it gets colder and colder and colder. Let's start here in Winnipeg. 4 degrees right now, and it's going to stay at 4 all day here in Winnipeg. That is your high as well. 30% chance of showers, going to dip to -3 overnight. There's about 30% chance or so of rain. Looking west to Brandon, you're sitting at 1 right now. You're going to be warming up to 3 degrees today. Much sunnier for you in Brandon today. In Dauphin, 2 degrees you are right now, and you're going to be hovering around there today, and with a 30% chance of rain or flurries. So one of those kind of days where you don't really know how to dress. Maybe bring a few different layers along if you're heading out. In Thompson right now, you're sitting at -13, heading for a high of -12 with a chance of flurries. In Churchill, you are at -24 right now, heading for a high today of -18. So quite chilly up in Churchill still. But right now in Winnipeg, we're sitting at 4 degrees.
And how's traffic looking this morning?
Pretty quiet overall. I will say we're still trying to find out if there's issues at the corner of Salter and Selkirk, where there was that fire overnight. We don't know if that's still closed or not. But if you're driving through there, we'd love to get a tip to let us know if you do see something going on there. Otherwise, the river trail's lovely, sidewalks are lovely, so are the bike lanes. But if you see anything going on, roads, highways, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
All right. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Kristalee Ramlakan is here with our business report for today. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Margot.
How are you?
I'm good. Long time no speak.
It's been a little minute. As Canada stares down that threat of tariffs, Kristalee, from the U.S., how are Canadians and Americans feeling financially?
Well, about half of Canadians and half of Americans believe their countries are in a recession right now. And that's according to a new poll by Leger. But, neither country is in a recession, but the Canadian Chamber of Commerce estimates a 25% tariff across the board would shrink Canada's economy by $78 billion. And would push the into a recession by next summer. And the chamber says the U.S. economy would also take a hit of $467 billion. Now, the survey suggests that Canadians and Americans hold similar views when it comes to their personal finances as well. 46% of Canadians say they live paycheck to paycheck, and 59% of Americans say the same thing. And Leger says income inequality south of the border is greater because safety social nets are less robust there. Something else I saw in the survey that I thought was kind of, interesting was the poll also says about 4 in 10 Canadians who have jobs are worried about losing them within the next year. And that is an increase from last month. So more people worried about that. And Margot, this online poll was conducted earlier this month and surveyed just over 1,500 Canadians and 1,000 Americans.
Very interesting. So staying with personal finances, what are people expecting when it comes to housing costs?
Well, a new survey from Royal LePage says most homeowners with mortgages up for renewal this year expect to pay more. And more than 1 million mortgages are up for renewal in Canada this year. And around 85% of those were secured when the Bank of Canada's key interest rate was historically low during the pandemic. So while rates are trending downward again, they are still well above those pandemic lows. And 81% of the homeowners say the increase is going to put financial strain on their household. And many plan to reduce discretionary spending, such as, going out to restaurants, entertainment, and travel to try to cope with these higher payments. And 10% say they are considering downsizing, relocating to a more affordable region, or even renting out a portion of their home. And, a potential trade war, of course, is adding to homeowners' anxiety. But, the central bank could drop rates to ease the burden on the economy. And more Canadians are exploring variable rate mortgages. So while it may be more expensive in the short term, some believe that option will be more affordable down the road because they can lock in a lower interest rate in the future.
And you have a story about a retailer that's doing better than the well-known giant Walmart.
Yes, so that is Amazon. Not super surprising, but it is a mark for this business. It has surpassed Walmart in revenue for the very first time. So Amazon brought in almost $188 billion in revenue during the fourth quarter, and that beat Walmart, which came in at about $180 billion. So Walmart had produced the highest quarterly revenues of any company since 2012, since it overtook oil giant ExxonMobil. And Walmart still leads the way in annual sales, but Amazon is gaining ground there too. So Amazon's retail unit makes the most revenue, but it's also fueled by other businesses, including cloud computing, advertising, and sellers services. And third-party seller services accounted for almost a quarter of the company's total sales last year. So that includes things like fulfillment, shipping, advertising, and customer support. And Walmart is getting in on that sector too. So the big box store operates a third-party marketplace and offers fulfillment services. And Walmart has also launched a loyalty program called Walmart Plus that is trying to compete with Amazon Prime.
What's happening on the market so far this morning?
In Europe, German stocks are lifting European markets after Germany's election. So Germany is up, the UK is up, France is down. In Asia, markets are mostly falling after Wall Street logged its worst session of the year Friday, as U.S. data points to a slowing economy and sticky inflation. So Japan is up, Shanghai is down, Hong Kong is down. Oil is down 2 cents to $70.38 U.S. per barrel. Gold is up $13.10 to $2,948.40 U.S. per ounce, and the dollar is up 0.04 of a cent to 70.3 cents U.S.
Crystalie, thanks so much.
All right, nice to talk to you again.
You too. That was Crystalie Ramlakan with the Business News. It is 6:42 on Information Radio. Good morning. I'm Margot Watt, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. She'll be back tomorrow. When a person dies, you often learn a lot about their life by reading their obituary. But these documents can also serve as a powerful research tool for those who want to better understand how we remember those who have passed. For instance, over the past few decades, a growing number of obituaries mention pets. CBC's Blair Sanderson has this look at what that says about the evolution of the obituary and our changing relationship with animals.
Get a bag and bring them out.
All right.
It's just peanut butter and pumpkin cookies.
For Joanne McLean, homemade dog treats, or cookies as she calls them, are part of her daily routine. She and her husband Dave owned a number of dogs throughout their 37 years of marriage. When he died, she was left with the task of writing her husband's obituary.
And when I sat down to write it, it came very easily.
McGill wanted something more personal than just a family tree.
I've always thought that other obituaries seemed strange that they named every relative they had. I'd never met Dave's father. I don't know his name. But I can name every dog that came to visit. And he talked more about those than he did about family. They were friends. They were more important to him.
But mentioning a family pet in an obituary is a relatively new phenomenon. That's according to Chris Miller, a sociologist at the University of Ottawa. He recently examined obituaries published in Canadian newspapers dating back more than a century.
In the early 1900s, the average obituary was around, 4 lines, maybe as many as 10 lines. And that really gives you enough space to say, this is the name of the person, this is the date that they died. Often you find in those really old obituaries, the body's going to go on this train to this city and people can meet it where it's going to be buried at this cemetery. And that's really all that you could say about the person.
Over the decades, obituaries grew longer in length, giving more room for descriptive language.
He doesn't just have a wife, he had a loving wife. He is fondly remembered by not just children, but grandchildren, nieces and nephews, aunts and uncles. People are really getting into the details of what made this person who they were.
But Miller says it was not until the 1990s that pets began to be mentioned in obituaries. From that decade until 2010, he found between 1% and 5% of obits made reference to a family animal. But now that number has shot up to 15%. According to Miller, one explanation is that people have become more accustomed to sharing more personal information, thanks to the growing influence of social media. It could also just be that pets generally are becoming more important in people's lives. Sarah Lyon speaks for the SPCA.
Animals have become part of families. You see that with the fact that we call ourselves parents to animals, right? You see that in the way that we're pampering our animals and calling them our kids.
And in many cases, pets in obituaries aren't just included with a person's hobbies near the end. Instead, they're often listed alongside other relatives.
So a lot of the animals are, survived by. He was survived by his loving wife, survived by his 3 children, and then his cats, Smokey, Muffin, Mitzi, and Pookie, things like that. This animal is a part of the family.
And that's exactly how Mr. Tig was mentioned in the obituary for Anne Spencer McLean. Mr. Tig was her cat. McLean's daughter, Valerie Kalheim, says there was no question he would get top billing despite being a cat.
Yes, well, I mean, obviously we do realize Mr. Tig wasn't going to read the obituary, but people who would read it, certainly people who knew my mom would not be surprised that Mr. Tig was mentioned, and quite importantly. And also it just gives you an insight into my mom. And I think that's when you're writing an obituary, that's what you're trying to do, is just give people a little taste of who this person was and what was important to them. And I'm just going to tell you that Mom would just be so pleased that you're interested in her and her cat. She'd really be tickled.
And as for Mr. Tig, Kalheim says he's moved on to her sister's farm, where there are 4 other cats to keep him company. For CBC Radio, I'm Blair Sanderson.
And as it turns out, some pets go through a period of mourning when their owner dies. Research from the Veterinary Teaching Hospital at Colorado State University shows that pets often change their eating and sleeping habits following the death of a beloved human in their lives. It is 6:47, 4 degrees in Winnipeg with a chance of some light showers today in the city. Some new music now from newly minted Juno nominee Sebastian Gaskin, a musician from Tatasquia, Cree Nation here in Manitoba. This is Song for Granny.
Left with no warning, left me with all my down here, carry the rest of it. Mama got a new job in the city, she still has your things. At least I can't see nothing no more, but her voice is still sings. everything will be alright. Healing in time. Everyone's gonna be fine. Oh, no, 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 no. Healing in time. Everything will be
And that is Sebastian Gaskin with Song for Granny. It's less than 2 weeks now until the federal Liberals choose the country's next prime minister. 4 candidates are in the running to succeed Justin Trudeau, with a 5th disqualified from the race just on Friday. And the contenders are gearing up to take the stage in Montreal for the first of 2 leadership debates. The French language debate is tonight, followed by tomorrow's debate in English. For more on this story, we've reached Alex Bollingal. He's Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief with the Toronto Star, and he joins us from Ottawa. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
So what do we need to know about the formats for both of these debates?
A pretty standard, kind of unsurprising format. Opening statements, they're going through various themes. Closing statements, they're going to scrum after. We do have an idea of the themes for tonight. Foreign affairs, Canada's position in the world, I should say, I guess is what they're calling it. Affordability, climate action, growing the economy. So these are the types of things they're going to be talking about at least tonight. But the format's generally not too surprising.
Right. Let's explore what's at stake for each of the candidates with their performances over the next couple of nights. We'll start with Mark Carney, who appears to be the front runner based on his number of endorsements, fundraising, some recent polling. How much is at stake for him with these debates?
I mean, basically that narrative is at stake for him, I think. If he fumbles this and messes this up, is he still the front runner? Is he still the favorite to win this thing? So that, I think that for him is the pressure, is don't mess this opportunity, get through this unscathed and carry on. I think a lot of people for him are going to be watching mainly 2 things, I think. His French ability tonight, and then his ability to deal with any criticism, carry himself well, just kind of his general demeanor and performance, given that there could be a federal election in which whoever wins this contest is up in the big show against Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives in a federal election in potentially a matter of weeks. So how he and this applies to the other candidates too, performs generally will kind of be seen against that metric as well.
And what else will the other candidates be trying to do?
I think for Freeland and Gould and Bayless, given that the narrative, the Carney frontrunner narrative is kind of ossified over this race, they want to crack that open and demonstrate that, they have a very impressive performance, I guess, basically to kind of shake that up and change that outlook and change that common perception. So the pressure's slightly different. Like if Carney has to just make it through this thing without fumbling, the others almost have to overperform, knock him off his game, and make a very strong case with a very strong performance that they should be the leader. So I think the pressure's high for everybody, but it's kind of different for the ones who aren't the perceived frontrunners at this point.
Now, on Friday, we heard about the disqualification of former MP Ruby Dalla from the running. What can you tell us about that?
Well, she's appealing that, I guess, is the first thing to say. She says it's baseless, and this is the party trying to achieve a Carney, quote-unquote, coronation. But, the party basically voted unanimously. They have the committee running the race to disqualify her, and she's saying she had 10 violations of elections rules, finance irregularities, and that sort of thing. So, we'll have to see where that appeal goes, but quite an interesting thing to happen so soon before the debate.
Very much
but,
so.
There you have it. Yeah.
How are the remaining candidates then positioning themselves with their policy proposals?
I think the general kind of argument they're all making is that they would be different than the current Trudeau administration. Like a lot of the strategists see that there's a perceived appetite for change in the electorate that the Conservatives had been gobbling up for months, that the Liberals want to also capture. And so each candidate's really trying position themselves as very different, a different thing than the Trudeau government, and then also position themselves as the best place to be the prime minister at a time when Donald Trump is talking about, devastating tariffs, annexation of our country, this kind of stark and unpredictable and alarming stuff from the United States. So I think those two areas are generally what they're all kind of pitching, and within that there are some slight differences in what they say they would do for like affordability and economic growth and et cetera, but not too many huge differences. But we'll have to see, if those whatever differences exist are kind of highlighted and become debate points tonight and tomorrow. Will be interesting to see if any new ones emerge. We're watching for all that for sure.
And what else will you be watching for with all these candidates over the next 2 nights?
I think that that policy stuff is one thing. Carney's performance in French, and all of them in French, I guess. But Carney especially is the kind of the perceived front runner who's an Anglophone from the Northwest Territories and from Edmonton. How he kind of carries himself in French, I think, will be big for people potentially voting to make him the next prime minister. And then just if there's any kind of sparks and tension between them, how aggressively does Karina Gould go after Carney, maybe go after each other? If there's any kind of friction and kind of fireworks in that regard, will also be something to watch for sure.
Are you expecting many fireworks?
I mean, I don't know. It's a Liberal Party debate, so they're all liberals. But I think there is an incentive for say a Chrystia Freeland to try and go after Carney and shake this thing up, given that there really is kind of a heavy impression that's kind of settled over the thing that she's the front runner. So there's an incentive to kind of shake that up, and one way to do that is to maybe go after him. So that's something to watch for, I think. But I'm not sure if I'd make a prediction on that. But it's something that I think could potentially happen for sure.
Alex, nice talking with you. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
That's Alex Bollingal, Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief with the Toronto Star. We reached him in Ottawa this morning. CBC News will have special coverage of both the French and English Liberal leadership debates. You can watch the French debate tonight, starting at 7 p.m. Manitoba time, followed by the English debate tomorrow, also starting at 7 p.m. our time on CBC News Network or wherever you stream CBC. At 6:57 now, let's get the very latest from our Winnipeg newsroom. Here's Megan.
Well, good morning. Police and fire crews are still at Selkirk and Salter after a pair of fires yesterday afternoon. The first started around 1:30 in the mixed-use building at the corner. It was quickly put out, but then another fire started around 4 p.m. And a Winnipeg couple is being remembered by their family as a brilliant and loving duo that touched the lives of many. Dawn and Ted Allen died after a fire destroyed their Fort Garry home in December. Both were journalists and worked in local media. And we'll have more at 7:30.
All right, Megan, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And after a very long stretch of cold weather across Manitoba, we are getting some relief from the cold, at least in southern Manitoba. For Winnipeg today, we're looking at a slight chance of showers throughout the day. Could be windy at times. With a high of 4 degrees, though, we've already reached our high. Will we care about the wind? I don't know. 4 degrees, staying mild for tomorrow as well. Traffic-wise, keep an eye on Selkirk and Salter, that area. Fire crews, as Megan mentioned, still on the scene after fires there overnight. Could be slippery with some of the water they would have been pouring on that fire. If you have any updates for us, please give us a call at 788-3093. Still to come here on the show, the Winnipeg Jets are hosting their annual Black History Month game tonight. We'll hear from former Jet Eldon Pokey Reddick about his experience being a black player in the NHL. That and much more still to come after 7 o'clock on Information Radio. World Report is next.
Larry Driscoll confessed to a murder that he swears he did not commit. And yet, in 2015, Driscoll found himself in a police station describing the crime.
and there was a confrontation in the vehicle. I think she was trying to take my billfold, and I went to defend myself to try to push her out of the car.
I'm Kathleen Goldhar, and this week on Crime Story, the interrogation that sent an innocent man to prison. Find Crime Story wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. World leaders are in Kyiv today. Ukraine is marking 3 years since Russia's full-scale invasion. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau arrived early this morning before joining Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for a defense and unity meeting. Trudeau pledged Canada's ongoing support for Ukraine. The CBC's Anna Cunningham has more from London.
Well, no, this is an important day for all of us to be here.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau greeting the Ukrainian delegation at Kyiv station, arriving by train from Poland, still the safest way to enter the country 3 years on from Russia's full invasion.
Prime Minister, please, this way. Thank you.
The bursts of air raid sirens across Kyiv this morning did not stop this meeting. President Volodymyr Zelensky sitting with Prime Minister Trudeau and 12 other European leaders, other countries joining remotely. Trudeau describing Zelensky as brave and resilient.
You continue to inspire me and tens of millions of my fellow citizens back home in Canada.
Prime Minister Trudeau making clear who the aggressor is in this war.
Russia's actions are nothing short of a direct attack against the rules-based international order.
Announcing further Canadian military aid, Trudeau said there was no turning back.
We cannot return to an era where might makes right.
The Prime Minister says everything must be done to enable Ukraine to secure a just and lasting peace.
A peace that cannot be achieved without Ukrainians at the table.
This meeting in Kyiv is a show of strength, coming after a week in which the US President Donald Trump appeared to soften his country's stance towards Russia. Trudeau's words echoed by many other leaders from the Baltic nations to Germany, Finland and Japan, all renewing their support for Ukraine and for lasting peace in Europe. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
Israeli tanks are moving into the occupied West Bank for the first time in decades. Israel's defense minister has warned troops will stay for a year in parts of the territory and that tens of thousands of displaced Palestinians who fled cannot return. Israel says it is determined to stamp out militant groups, but Palestinian authorities say this latest move is a dangerous escalation. Sasha Petrusik has more from Jerusalem.
Tanks roll across the occupied West Bank for the first time in more than 2 decades. Israel's show of force against what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says is increased activity by Hamas and other groups in refugee camps. We are fighting terror on all fronts, he says, and will stay as long as necessary. Israel ramped up its forces here in the wake of 3 bus bombs near Tel Aviv this week. The camps, home for Palestinian families originally displaced by Israel's creation in 1948, have long been strongholds for militant groups. They've now been mostly emptied by the Israeli military, which has destroyed houses and torn up infrastructure, forcing 40,000 Palestinians to move. Hundreds of fighters and civilians have been killed here in the past months. Israel's settlers are pushing hard for it to annex this territory, though even its occupation is considered illegal by most countries and the World Court. Tensions have spiked since the Gaza conflict started. It's all because of the hatred they have for us, says Palestinian Mazrin Bakri in Hebron. Israel insists the moves are driven by security needs, though many in government are also pushing for annexation. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Jerusalem.
German conservative opposition leader Friedrich Merz is claiming victory. Merz's party won 208 of the 630 seats in parliament. That means he will need to establish a coalition to form a majority government. Jan Spahn is the vice chair of Merz's Christian Democratic Union Party.
Well, we do have a clear mandate for Friedrich Merz. He will become our next chancellor here in Germany. Olaf Scholz is done, and his government, his coalition. And now we will have negotiations in the upcoming days and weeks.
One thing Merz has made clear, that coalition will not involve the AfD, Alternative for Germany Party. The far-right party had its strongest showing since the Second World War, winning a total of 152 seats. Liberal leadership candidates will face off tonight in the first of two debates of this short contest. The French language debate is scheduled in Montreal this evening. 4 candidates will be on stage: Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, Karina Gould, and Frank Baylis. Janice McGregor will be watching, and she joins us now from our Parliamentary Bureau. Janice, what are we expecting from tonight's debate?
Marcia, past French language debates have been opportunities to test the proficiency of bilingual Anglophones against their Francophone competitors. But none of the federal Liberal Party's top Francophones threw their hat into this ring. So, as we listen tonight, we're just going to have to imagine how the bilingualism of these 4 contestants could match up against Bloc leader Yves-François Blanchet in an election debate. The Quebec audience tonight is absolutely critical for the Liberal Party's fortunes. Public opinion surveys suggest that a significant part of the Liberals' recent uptick in support could be attributable to voters now thinking twice about voting for the Sovereigntist Party. Party organizers considered a long list of social and economic issues as potential topics for this debate, but they landed on 4 final themes. Canada's place in the world, a first round that's going to include Canada-U.S. relations. Then, competing ideas for growing a strong economy. Third, supporting Canadians, discussing affordability measures, housing, healthcare. And finally, climate action. Party supporters are going to be filling in a ranked ballot, which means that if no frontrunner wins a majority of first choices, being a party's second choice might be critical. So it'll be interesting to see how aggressive the contestants get against each other tonight, or whether they're going to channel it all instead on the 2 men waiting in the wings for whoever wins this thing. Pierre Poilievre, whose Conservative Party still leads across national polls, and Donald Trump, whose ongoing threats have practically taken over the political agenda.
Someone we won't see on the stage tonight is former candidate Ruby Dalla. She was disqualified on Friday. Where does that stand now?
Late yesterday, she announced she's filing an appeal of the party's decision to disqualify her from this race after an extraordinary meeting on Friday where party officials unanimously found 10 violations of the party's rules. We still don't know exactly what those violations are, but the party president called them extremely serious, suggesting she may have violated the Canada Elections Act, failed to disclose what he called material facts, and filed inaccurate financial reports. Dalla says these violations are fabricated, fictitious, and fake. And she says they're meant to complete Mark Carney's coronation as leader.
All right. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Some Hyundai drivers say their car's paint is peeling off in huge chunks. It's happening to relatively new cars, but owners say getting any help has been difficult. It's a problem happening around the globe, specifically to white Hyundais. Idil Musa with the Go Public team has that story.
It's kind of embarrassing.
Armando Tusi says he feels ashamed driving his 2016 Hyundai Sonata around. He bought the car new, and now, less than 10 years later, the car's paint is peeling, bubbling, flaking off in large chunks.
It's actually quite insane how many people are being impacted by the same issue.
There are Facebook groups with thousands of people with white Hyundais facing the same problem and a proposed class action lawsuit in Quebec.
Driving this around basically is an advertisement against Hyundai.
Emma Nixon in Melbourne, Australia, has been trying for years to get the paint on her peeling 2015 hatchback fixed.
It's been such an upsetting experience. And it looks so bad for the brand.
Experts say the cause is likely delamination or loss of adhesion, which can happen when paint coats aren't applied properly or the incorrect formulation is used. Hyundai Canada's warranty covers paint on vehicles for 3 years or 60,000 kilometers. Chris Wood with Leon's Auto Body in Toronto says it should last much longer.
I believe the paint job should last for as long as you own the vehicle.
Hyundai Canada says their vehicles undergo rigorous testing and manufacturing paint issues are extremely rare. The automaker's U.S. division is offering a white paint warranty extension for certain models. When Go Public reached out, Hyundai Canada said some models sold in Canada are also eligible. Idil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is the latest from World Report. 10 minutes is all it takes to get the international and national news you need from CBC. Why not make it a habit? Follow World Report today wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app, and on YouTube. I'm Margot Watt, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Coming up on the show, back in the 80s, he was the second black goalie to ever play in the NHL. Coming up, we'll catch up with Pokey Reddick. He'll reflect on his time as a Winnipeg Jet and what it was like back then to be a black player in the league. Also this hour, we'll meet a Winnipeg teenager who decided he shouldn't speak just one language, so he's learning 4 more. And despite his electric vehicle being approved for a rebate on the MPI website, he was denied. And now this Winnipegger is out thousands of dollars. So what exactly happened? We'll hear from him. That's all coming up on Information Radio. With a look at today's rosy forecast, here's Corey.
Yes, right now it is 4 degrees right now in Winnipeg. We are heading for a high of, 4 degrees with a 30% chance or so of showers. Pretty lovely day ahead. A bit windy, though. 40 gusting to 60 is the wind, though. So just look up for that. Might be a bit breezy out there. I'll have a regional forecast for you later on, but just assume if further north you are, the colder it gets today in Manitoba. 4 degrees right now at the Forks.
And we'll check traffic in just a moment. But first, the latest from the CBC Newsroom. Here's Megan.
Well, hundreds rallied in Winnipeg yesterday, waving Ukrainian flags and chanting for peace in their home country. The somber ceremony marking the 3-year anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and we'll hear from those who were there. And police and fire crews are still at Selkirk and Salter after a pair of fires yesterday afternoon. The first started around 1:30 in the mixed-use building on the corner. It was quickly put out, but then another fire started around 4 p.m. And we'll have more at 7:30.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
And with a look at traffic, here's Corey.
Yeah, so we just actually heard from Megan about that fire, Salter and Selkirk. We still don't know. We know there's traffic crews there, but we don't know what that means for the intersection, if it's closed or not. So we're hoping to get tips from you. If you're out there, you're driving around, you see something, you're walking, biking, driving, you see something at Selkirk and Salter, give us an update, whether it's open or not. Would love to hear from you. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
The Winnipeg Jets are hosting their annual Black History Month game tonight, and this year the team will be honoring former Jet Eldon Pokey Reddick. Reddick was a goaltender for the Jets from 1986 to 1989, and in the late 80s, Pokey made history when he became the second black goalie to play in the National Hockey League. He won the Stanley Cup during his time with the Edmonton Oilers. Now he coaches hockey in Las Vegas, where he started Nevada's first ever high school hockey team. Information Radio host Marcy Marcusa spoke with him ahead of tonight's game. Here's some of that conversation.
Hi to you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. It's always great to talk to fellow Canadians. Love it. Love it.
Congratulations on this. How are you feeling about this honor?
I think it's when you're playing, and I know from other guys who are of color and, of different nationalities, you just play because you love the sport. Hockey's always been my thing, so to speak. Growing up in Canada, we always knew that I always knew that I was going to play hockey at the level. I didn't know which level, but once I got to junior, I figured out, hey, maybe I can really do this for a gig, as you're going to call it. But it was one of those things that that's what I wanted to do with my life, is become a hockey player. I didn't really care about the color of my skin. I knew there was going to be obstacles along the way, and that's how I handled these obstacles along the way. So.
How do you reflect on it now? Then you're in it, you're loving the sport, you're playing,
now,
how do you reflect on it now?
I think it's a big achievement. It's I have four kids. I have 2 boys and 2 girls, and you go back, and Was it really tough like that, Dad? Yeah, it was. It is what it is. But, if you have a dream and a passion, you're going to push forward. And to get to where you get, especially at the highest level of hockey that you can compete in and the best players in the world in the league, it's you sit back now as an older guy, sit back and I says, well, I actually did something. So, and again, more colored people or more people of different types of ethnicities makes it easier for other kids to get that opportunity that maybe my favorite goalie back in the day was Rogie Vachon, and he wasn't a black guy. So now you get to see more guys that are, up there, if you're black, you're looking at Grant Fuhr or all these other type goalies. That's who I kind of looked at once he started getting into the league, because he was a little bit older than I was. Then I think, oh, maybe I can get there. So it's a great achievement. It's something that, like I say, you got to go through it. It's one of those things that, I'll cherish for the rest of my life.
I'm not looking for this to be negative, but I am looking for it to be truthful and real, of course. So I'm wondering if you faced racism coming up and where you put that as you're achieving your dream as a young man.
We call them obstacles in our house. We don't really call them racism. We just call them obstacles. How do you go over these? People are always going to tell you can't, or you shouldn't, or this is in your way. How do you move it? So I look at it as same thing I tell my kids. There's going to be obstacles. It's how we take them and how we move them. Was there racism? Yeah, sure was. And any hockey player that's of color or race or whatever, they're going to tell you the same thing. So it's just how you move them. Can you move them positive? Can you move them negative? It's just all how you tend to move the obstacle. So that's how I braced all my stuff, or how I looked at things. So
why did you fall in love with the game of hockey? Like, how old were you when you were like, oh, this is for me?
I probably started at 4 or 5 playing hockey. My dad played a little bit of hockey, chasing his little dream back in the day. But it's Canadian, right? It is what it is. It's Canadian. That's what we do. We play hockey. I'm sorry. Growing up in America, we know they play baseball and football, but I know, that's what we do. We play hockey. I'm sorry.
And I've never known this. I mean, like I said, I grew up watching you in the stands, cheering Pokey, but why was that your nickname?
It's just because I was kind of like, if the street lights didn't come on, I come in late. It wasn't, I'm still out skating with the boys or playing ball hockey or street hockey, whatever we did back in those days. And parents were like, geez, that kid's so pokey. What's taking him so long? And then it just, that's just how it came to be. And I mean, I went to school, my first couple of years of school, teachers didn't know my real name. It's the craziest thing. They called me Pokey too. So that's just how it's been with me since I could remember.
To look back at the significance of becoming just the second black goalie to play in the National Hockey League, there's still a small percentage of NHL players that are black. Why do you think that is still the case?
I just think it's going to take its time. It's a sport where it's generated more towards it's an expensive sport. It really is. People just from coaching and my boys playing, and actually my oldest just retired. Now he's coaching in the NA, which is a junior league, which is like I'll probably say a little bit more above than the MJ Manitoba Junior League. So I know he's coaching in hockey, and he's just started his little way of that. But it just makes it's just tougher. It's just an expensive sport now that it's really expensive in America, because I see it every day. But it's starting to move, but it just takes time, I guess.
What are your fondest memories when you look back at your career about playing in Winnipeg?
Just the guys I played with. It was awesome. Like, that was my favorite time. 3 years in Winnipeg was awesome. I played in Brandon my junior, so I would kind of go back and forth. There's an opportunity for me to practice. They would say, come on in, and I'd practice maybe once and then go back and play junior. But to me, the people were so nice, friendly, great place to raise a family, great city. Everybody was, very supportive of the Jets back then, or the Blue Bombers. So it was actually awesome.
You remember the old barn and looking up at the Queen pick, which of course we love to talk about far too much, probably in the city.
Yeah, it was awesome though. It was like the first time I walked in there, it says, "Man, that's a big picture of the Queen. That was huge. It was so big."
When it comes to diversity in the league, how have things changed? In your view, what are some of the positives to talk about, to hang on to, and build on? I should say, yeah.
Pardon?
I was going to say, and build on, I should say.
I think the league has gotten behind it a lot more. I think it's hockey's for everybody. We know that, and that's what it should be. A lot of guys are going out of their way now to do more of the little extra things to promote the game to different areas that, I grew up in Vegas, and I know the Golden Knights do a little bit more to some of the diverse communities. And so we know that it works. It just takes a little bit of time. So I know the league is really behind it, and guys are, grabbing it and trying to run with it a little bit. So it's going to just take some time.
Do you think it's important for professional sports leagues like the NHL to host things like, the Black History Month games, or because that can be contentious at points, right? Where it's like, it can be maybe disappointing to people that we still need a month to talk about Black history. I'm wondering how you view this.
I think the more you get it's out there, the more people realize. You know what I mean? It's not like it's just, like you said, it's once a month. It should be all the time, but we know how the world works. So, anytime you get to promote it, you should promote it as best you can.
What are you most looking forward to at the game when you're going to be honored, and who's going to be there to celebrate with you or to watch?
Well, all my family's coming, which is great. All my kids, and my parents aren't alive. Obviously, they're older, but all my 4 siblings, and so all my family is going to be there. So it's going to be fun for us. And like I said, Winnipeg it's a big part of my life. That's how I got my start. The people were very nice to me. And again, growing up, and at that particular time, I knew in the league there was 2 goalies. One was Grant, one was myself, and I knew there was 2 or 3 other players playing. So every time we kind of cross paths, we always say, good job, whatever the circumstance may be. So to me, it's going to be awesome for my family to be there. So
you mean that limited number of Black players in the league at that time, you guys actually supported each other?
Sure did. Yes, we did. Like, it was like, it's hard. People don't realize it's when you just see a handful of us playing. So we're wishing that they do well, and we're not really worrying about our colors so much. We're worrying about trying to stay in the league and play at the same time, right?
Well, congratulations, Pokey Reddick. Thanks for making some of my childhood memories watching you on the ice with the Jets in the 80s, and enjoy your time back in Winnipeg. I know you said you haven't been back in about a decade, so it'll be something to be here.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, and good job. Thanks.
That was Eldon Pokey Reddick speaking with Information Radio host Marcy Marcusa, and he will be recognized at tonight's Jets game, which is in honor of Black History Month. We'll talk more about the big game and other sports with Scott Regier coming up in just a few moments. But first, we have some new music from Saskatoon singer-songwriter Katie Tupper. Here's a song about accepting that you'll never be perfect in your relationships. What? This is Katie Tupper with Jeans.
Expectation, meet me at the field. Know I'd love to see you. Your friends are my friends, your clothes are my clothes now. I love a long anticipation. You pay a lot of money for therapy just to listen to me and repeat next week. It's got to get old, but I bite my nails and I always will. My little bad habit that I love to feel. I always wanna pull in to you, but I can't fall on my knees again. Gravel in my palms and now my jeans are tearing, and I can't follow your lead again. You cut me down, but I keep on crawling. We need some real conversations. You touch me just to cut it short, and I think that's on purpose. I think that you know it. So my greyhound, green grass, last chance, best case. It's so hard when you feel so good. I bite my nails and I always will. My little bad habit that I love to feel. I always wanna pull in to you, but I can't
That's music from Saskatoon's Katie Tupper. The song is called Jeans. It is 7:25. Time for morning sports with Scott Regehr. Hey, Scott.
Happy Monday, Margot.
And to you as well. Let's start with curling, where the Homan Empire continues its reign.
Yes, does it ever. Rachel Homan's ranked Margot beat Carrie Anerson's 6-1 yesterday in claiming the Tournament of Hearts title. Not only did Homan's Ottawa-based squad win the Scotties for a second year running, it went undefeated for a second year running, something we've never seen before. Retired great aunt Winnipegger Jennifer Jones can take at least some of the credit for it. She was, after all, hired to coach Homan and her teammates.
It's been a lot of fun. The girls have been awesome. They've been so welcoming, and just getting a front row seat to watch them play and try to add a little bit if I can here and there. You know, there's a lot of mutual respect, so sometimes just to bounce ideas off of or give my insight into certain situations. I think I add a little bit of value here and there, and it seems to be working very well.
Was there any time where you just wanted to leap off the bench and throw a couple of rocks in that final?
No, I was happy with where I was at.
That is Jennifer Jones, who does have something, Margot, on her resume Rachel Homan would dearly like to have as well, and that is an Olympic gold medal.
That's right.
Homan's certainly the favorite at the moment to represent Canada at next year's Games in Italy. In the meantime, she and her teammates will focus on a bonspiel in South Korea next month, where Homan can add a second world championship in a row to that growing CV of hers.
And let's move over to hockey, because I'm very excited because Jets are back in action tonight against the Sharks, and I'm actually going to the game. I haven't been to a game in a while. Very excited.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a good luck charm. Hard to know.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. Lots to look forward to. Winnipeg back home for one game, giving fans, such as yourself, a chance to celebrate a potentially notable achievement. Following their shootout victory on Saturday, the Jets now are on a franchise-high winning streak of 9 games. And when I say franchise-high, I'm including the 1.0 and 2.0 versions of the Jets in that. Meanwhile, this evening sees the probable return of both Josh Morrissey and Connor Hellebuyck from the Four Nations face-off. Of course, the Canadian Morrissey got the edge over the American Hellebuyck. Although because of illness, Morrissey wasn't actually on the ice for that gold medal game, something the defender is still, in a sense, coming to terms with.
Always crushing not to be out there in the fight with the guys, and obviously not being able to celebrate with the guys after, but the guys and the coaching staff and management, the way they consoled me or however after, and the kind words and stuff like that just meant a lot. So they made me really feel like, even though I wasn't out there in that final game, I was a big part of things and part of that journey.
That'd be so tough. Morrissey likened the experience, Margot, to the 2018 playoff run that saw the Jets make it to the conference finals, but that this tournament was even on another level from that. Morrissey also says that it's given him extra motivation to make next year's Olympic roster, so we'll see if that motivation turns into more wins for the Jets. Puck drop tonight, 6:30.
And as long as the puck drops, and as long as the puck doesn't come my way, because the last time I was at a hockey game, I was hit by the puck.
What?
It was a power play,
There's
slap
no
shot.
netting?
It was a little minor league game years ago.
Okay.
No netting. Maybe there was a board. It was 6 inches tall. Who knows? Puck. I says, puck going to hit us? Oh, no. Comes soaring over the boards. Hits me right in the thigh.
Ouch.
My thighs have never looked the same, honestly. Anything else?
You'll be safer tonight. There is netting around the arena.
That's what
at
I've
the
heard.
NHL level. Yeah.
Anything else from the weekend we should know, Scott?
Yeah, ski jumping. Abigail Straight, Margot, won bronze yesterday in Austria. For the Calgary native, that's the first medal of the World Cup season. Straight will be one of Canada's big hopes at next year's Olympics, having won bronze at the Beijing Games in the team competition. And she attributes her success in the sport to a diversity of interests, including beekeeping, which is why she keeps a cartoon bee emblazoned on her skis.
I look at the bee and it kind of, I don't know if it brings me back to the kind of the chaos of a hive or what, but it always makes me smile. It's a cute little cartoon bee, and calms me down, relaxes me, and it kind of makes me think of, it's not that big, it's not that deep sport, it's just one part of my life, and there's lots of other people going through lots of other things, and it kind of brings me just to that moment, and I'm able to do what I need to do.
Beekeeping as a means for catharsis. With global politics the way they are right now, Margot, that just seems appropriate somehow.
I love it. Let's all embrace the bee.
Yes.
Thank you, Scott.
You bet.
Scott Regehr here every day with a look at sports for us. Time now for the CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg at 7:30. Mostly cloudy and 4. We're looking at cloudy with a chance of showers later on, windy and a high of 4. Nearly 30,000 Ukrainians have arrived and settled in Manitoba since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. On today's third anniversary, many Ukrainian newcomers are anxious about their future here due to challenges with documents and hurdles in the immigration process. The CBC's Rosanna Hempel brings us one family story.
So no one picks up? Yes. It's every time.
Tetiana Izakova and her husband Leonid can't get through to the Ukrainian consulate in Toronto. They're trying to renew Leonid's passport before it expires. Without it, he can't extend his work permit and stay in Canada.
I need to live here because I know live here, so I come back Ukrainian and I dead.
The couple and their 8-year-old son don't want to leave Carmen, where they've lived for nearly 2 years.
We stress it every day.
The Ukrainian-Canadian Congress of Manitoba says many Ukrainian newcomers are running into challenges with paperwork, and those who came under Canada's emergency visa program have until the end of March to apply for extensions. Immigration Canada recently told CBC it may consider exemptions to the passport requirement on a case-by-case basis. Leonid and Tetiana are exploring all options with hopes of staying here together. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Carmen.
The Canadian Museum for Human Rights was standing room only yesterday as hundreds of people marked 3 years of war in Ukraine. More than a dozen people also stood outside waving Ukrainian flags, holding signs while singing and chanting. Lisa Sichkar was among them, and she fled to Winnipeg because of the war, but her entire family is back in Ukraine.
My heart is breaking every day because of all of this genocide, because that's what it is. And just trying to live day to day, you're super stressed because of everything that's going on.
The war has been between Europe's deadliest conflict since World War II and has caused hundreds of thousands of military casualties and tens of thousands of Ukrainian civilian casualties. Emergency crews are still on the scene of 2 fires from yesterday afternoon at Selkirk and Salter. The first started around 1:30 p.m. The fire broke out in a mixed commercial and residential building on Selkirk near Salter Street. Firefighters tackled the fire from inside and brought it under control. But then around 4 p.m., crews responded to another fire in the same block. The city says deteriorating conditions forced the firefighters outside the building. Aerial ladders were used to douse the fire from the outside. The city says there were no injuries reported, and both fires are being investigated, and people displaced by the fire are being helped by Winnipeg's emergency social services. Well, German voters have elected a new chancellor.
Jetzt darf auch mal Rambo Zambo im Adenauer.
That's Friedrich Merz, the leader of the center-right Christian Democratic Union. It finishes the general election with 29% support, and Merz is now to form a coalition before taking office. But he insists that coalition will not involve the Alternative for Germany, or AfD. It is a far-right party that came in second in the voting. The Social Democrats, led by outgoing Chancellor Olaf Scholz, came third. A Winnipeg man says he deserves a $2,500 electric vehicle credit after he was rejected by MPI. Brad Clote bought a 2020 Ioniq earlier this year. When he applied for the province's rebate, he was rejected. He says it wasn't fair because he used MPI's online tool, which told him he was eligible.
I think I did everything possible to verify that it was eligible by using the tools that were provided by the government through the MPI.
A spokesperson for MPI says the application was denied because vehicles must be less than 4 years old when you buy it. They said they'll consider adding more information to the criteria to its eligibility checker. A granddaughter is mourning the loss of her grandparents after a Winnipeg fire. Dawn and Ted Allen died in December when their Fort Garry home was destroyed in a blaze. She did ballet, he was passionate about sports, and both were journalists who worked for local media. But to Haley Allen Fox, the loving Ted and Dawn were her role models and her second set of parents.
They just were so non-judgmental and they really believed in the power of people and community. They were real socialists and not just in the way they voted or the way they spoke, but they acted that out in their own lives, in the way that they cared for other people.
Ted and Don Allen met in South Africa in the 1950s and stayed together ever since. They leave behind 3 children, 3 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. And that's the CBC News from Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
You're with Information Radio, 89.3 FM, and on YouTube. I'm Margot Watt, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa today. Corey Funk is here with a look at our regional forecast.
Yes, right now in Winnipeg, we're sitting at 4, and that's going to be where we stay for the rest of the day. 30% chance of showers today here in the city. Going to dip down to -3 overnight. Warm up again to 3 tomorrow. Looking to the west, Brandon, right now you are sitting at right around 4 degrees as well. You'll be going to about 3 degrees today. Actually, so yeah, 1 degree right now. Apologies. You'll be warming up to 3 degrees today. Sunny for you in Brandon. Dauphin, you are at 3 degrees, and you're going to actually be cooling down a little bit to 1. With a 30% chance of rain and flurries. Thompson, right now, you're at -13, so it's quite a bit colder up north today, warming up just 1 degree to -12 with a chance of flurries. And Churchill, you're at -26 still, so quite cold up there, going for a high today of -18. You got some drifting snow right now as well. But once again, here in Winnipeg, we are sitting at 4.
And how's the drive-in so far?
Yes. You know what? The only thing that I was wondering about was about at Selkirk and Salter. There was a fire overnight. Crews are still on scene. But I got a call from Julie with an update that actually it is smooth sailing through there.
Good.
So shouldn't be any issues traffic-wise at Selkirk and Salter. So that's mostly only good news today traffic-wise. But if you do see something going on, if you're walking, bike, and driving, haven't heard any major issues, let me know what you're seeing out there. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
All right. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
And coming up in about 10 minutes here on the program, if you're still coughing days or even weeks after having a cold or flu, well, you are not alone. We'll learn about post-infectious cough from our regular medical columnist coming up just before 8 o'clock. Time now, though, for the latest in our special series of stories produced by filmmaking students in the CREATE program at Sisler High School. This is in collaboration with CBC Manitoba. This week, we'll meet a Winnipeg teenager who decided he wanted to know more than just one language, English. So Eric Wright decided to learn 4 more. What's more, the 17-year-old is learning as much as he can about the cultures that accompany the languages. CREATE students Samira Abalor, Venice Passaraba, and Justina Finch produced the short video. Here now is their story. Eric Wright starts it off by introducing himself in Ukrainian, Icelandic, Spanish, and Punjabi.
Hi, my name is Eric Wright. Мене 17 років. Med det finska men lära tungomål till att tänjas över. Así es porque estoy aprendiendo español y islandés y ucraniano. Ate tahajia Punjabi bolla. Most of my friends are bilingual, and I just kind of felt a little behind by only speaking English. I'll kind of just learn some phrases and get excited just to be able to speak it. And once you learn like the sounds and simple phrases, to get into grammar, AI is really helpful.
Að gera. Ég geri, þú gerir, hann, hún, það gerir, við gerum, þið gerið.
Especially for charts of learning verbs and conjugation and cases. So it's really helpful in that sense. And then, of course, if you have the opportunity to take a language class, that would be your best option.
Slava Ukraini. My name is Eric Wright.
Last year, I got the opportunity to speak at the Holodomor Remembrance Ceremony in Ukrainian. And so that was a big moment for me because I had to learn a new way of speaking Ukrainian, a more professional, formal way.
My name is Oresa Petrushin. I taught Eric Ukrainian language, culture, taught him about Ukrainian Holodomor. The lessons, first of all, started with a simple hello, добрий день, привіт, how are you, як ви, як це маєш, a simple conversation.
It also took a lot of confidence, too, to speak to hundreds of people in a language that you're not fluent in. Immersion is your best friend when it comes to actually learning the language. So while memorizing phrases and words is important later on, to actually get yourself involved and speaking more naturally, and especially listening and understanding what other people are saying, you got to be surrounded by the language. You got to be immersed in a place where people are speaking to you.
So what I learned from Eric, because his ancestors, he has varieties of different backgrounds. So this is unique because he can dance, he can actually speak, he can actually do varieties of different dialogues with others, and he was able to learn about the country, learn about the tradition, culture.
Something I really love about languages would be understanding where people are coming from, and humor is a big thing too, because I've been raised with like English humor and hearing jokes in English, but people can be far funnier in Spanish and Ukrainian.
Хлопці, вареники і
Голубці, вареники, що ще?
так, борщ.
Борщ, добре.
Та ти?
Що ти любиш?
Я люблю треники, вареники.
Вареники, добре.
О, я чув.
The phonetics are very beautiful, just different sounds that you never really make, and it's a very fun thing to learn how to do.
That story was produced by Sisler Create students Samira Abalor, Venice Passaraba, and Justina Finch, with support from CBC Manitoba. For more on this story, just head to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Canada, you have questions.
I intend to resign as Prime Minister.
Let's talk about them.
There are real consequences.
I do think it would help to have a little bit more money.
They should be a state.
Canada Tonight. Watch on CBC News Network and CBC Gem.
It is 7:42, 4 degrees here in Winnipeg. Some light showers expected today in the city. Let's get an update right now on traffic this morning with Corey.
Yeah, just got a call on the commuter line from Jason. He said southbound Disraeli on that kind of second hump there right before Main Street. There's been a multi-vehicle collision in the curb lane. As you can imagine, that's causing some pretty big backups there. No emergency vehicles on site yet, but it's probably going to be very slow going as that collision seems to have just happened. So heads up on southbound Disraeli just before Main Street. If you do see anything else going on out there, do give me a call on CBC commuter line. We'd love to get an update on this or anything else you're seeing. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Winnipegger Brad Cloette says he did everything right to ensure the vehicle he purchased would be eligible for the provincial electric vehicle rebate. In fact, he says it was the deciding factor in purchasing that vehicle. But despite confirming its eligibility using the Manitoba Public Insurance Verification tool online, he was denied. Now he's out $2,500 and feels that's unfair. CBC's Joanne Levasseur spoke with Cloette about what happened.
Well, the timing seemed right with the rebate from the federal government. It was canceled, but at the same time, the provincial one was still around. And so I had written off my vehicle, and it seemed the right time to switch to an electric vehicle. We started looking at several different models, but we came upon the one Hyundai Ioniq 2020. So then we looked to see if it was eligible using the MPI webpage, and it came back it was eligible for the rebate. And then we applied and then got rejected. When it totally is clear and concise on the webpage that you use this tool to see if you're eligible for the rebate. So that was extremely disappointing. We've looked in the past at buying an electric vehicle a year or so, and we were on the waiting list because they were in so demand. And this time we decided to go to used, but we had looked at a couple different models of used new ones. But back a year or so ago, there was a big backlog to get the new ones.
Why an electric vehicle? What would that do?
Its emissions would be less, and it's environmental sound for us. And the cost of running an electric vehicle long term should be quite a bit less than burning fuel. And being Manitoba Hydro is a Crown corporation, the price of electricity is fairly reasonable. So all those added up to being a good choice.
How big a deal is the $2,500 rebate?
Yeah, it was a deciding factor in us buying the vehicle was the rebate. So we would have went maybe another couple years newer to meet the criteria, but we went with the VIN number that said that it was eligible. Well, it's a cop-out. It's totally their program. The provincial government tasked the MPI to run the program. The program says for you to be eligible, to see if you are eligible, is to run the VIN number. And it also says if you want to look up all the vehicles that are eligible, and both had said they're eligible, both lists.
Okay. So in terms of due diligence, did you think you did the right things to check on this?
Yeah, I think I did everything possible to verify that it was eligible by using the tools that were provided by the government through the MPI. So the government tasked the MPI to run the program for the eligibility part of it, and then the rebate was sent to another department. So I can't see where I did anything wrong. I used the tools that was promoting the EV rebate.
That was the CBC's Joanne Levasseur speaking with Winnipegger Brad Cloette. In a written statement, MPI told CBC that the rebate applies to electric vehicles which are less than 4 years old at the time of purchase, and that customers are responsible for ensuring that their vehicle is purchased within that 4-year time frame. The MPI website that indicated Cloette's electric car was eligible does not ask for the date of purchase. MPI said it is considering adding more information to the tool that checks serial numbers. You can read more about this story on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Let's have some music now from Jade Turner, an artist out of Selkirk, who just released her 3rd studio album, Breathe. And from it, here's Jade with Taking It Easy.
Not gonna lie, this year has been pretty hard, but I learned a lot. I'm proud I've come so far. Sometimes life just pushes you around, but I know my worth. I'll straighten out my crown. But I feel like it's time to take a break. I deserve it, so I'm not gonna hesitate. I'm taking it easy, taking it easy. We're not meant to work our lives away. There's so much in this world I wish I could change. I need to learn to take a chance, to go out and laugh, to go out and dance. Yeah, I feel like it's time to take a break. I deserve it, so I'm not gonna hesitate. Taking it easy.
Here's a great song from Jade Turner and Taking It Easy. You know, Jade came by our studios just before her album release to chat about the record and her music career. You can find that conversation on the CBC Listen app. While there are a lot of viruses around this winter, you may have noticed at your office where you work, a lot of people may not be there today. And even if you've gotten over the worst of a flu, cold, or COVID infection, you might be suffering from an ongoing post-infectious cough. We're joined now by our regular health and medicine contributor, Dr. Raj Bhardwaj. To learn more, Dr. Bhardwaj is an urgent care and emergency department doctor in Calgary. He spoke with Information Radio's Marcy Marcusa last week.
Good morning, Marcy.
Why do some people get this post-infectious cough, and I guess by extension, why do some not? But how common is it?
Yeah, so in terms of commonality, the research shows that up to 25% of people who get a respiratory infection like influenza or cold or COVID or whatever will end up having a cough that can last 3 to 8 weeks. But 8 weeks, that's a long time. In terms of why, sometimes it's the infection. So if you think of pertussis, which is whooping cough, which is luckily very rare due to vaccination, that's also known as the 100-day cough. And so it just lasts that long. Even COVID can give a very lingering sort of long COVID type picture. But in most cases, it's really just due to the damage that's done to your lungs and your throat and your nasal passages and all that from the virus or whatever infection was there. Now, sometimes it has to do with, maybe there's something else going on in your lungs. We can talk about that in a second. But a lot of this is just the damage that was caused from the infection. So I think of it as like, the sort of the typical kind of story of, teenagers who, their parents go away for the weekend and they decide to have a house party, and then it gets out of hand and like everybody in the whole neighborhood shows up and they trash the house. And then the teenagers wake up the next morning, everybody's gone, and they're like, oh no, my parents are coming back. They can't know that I had a party. It takes a while to clean up the house, right? So same thing with a post-viral cough. Your immune system has kicked out all of the, unwanted guests who have been partying in your nose and your sinuses and your throat and your lungs. But those party goers, those germs have left a big mess, which takes a while to clean up. And that mess involves mucus that you need to cough up, dead cells that need to be cleaned up and regenerated, inflammatory chemicals that need to settle down. It just takes a while to clean up that mess. And the cough is part of that cleanup process.
It's the beer bottle that is behind the dryer that no one saw.
Exactly.
All right. Not to make light or too much light, but what are the clues that the cough might actually be something, as you alluded to, that is more serious?
Yeah, so one thing that we want to make sure is that you don't get a second infection, right? Or that you didn't get a second infection, and that's what's causing an increase in cough. So usually this cough just lingers, and slowly goes away. But if your cough was getting better and better and then got suddenly worse, and then you got a new fever and you were coughing stuff up, or you got short of breath, or you got chest pain, things like that, especially if you are coughing up blood, or if you smoke or you vape, anything like that, those are all things where it's like, you should get this checked out. The other thing is if you have any kind of predisposition to asthma, like if you have allergies or if you have eczema, or if you had, when I was a kid, I had very mild asthma that only bugged me when I ran in the wintertime or something like that, then maybe asthma or something is playing a role in this. But for the most part, this will just slowly linger and slowly get better. And they do. Almost all of these coughs will settle on their own within 3 to 8 weeks. So if your cough lasts longer than about 8 weeks, then for sure you should think about getting checked out to make sure there's not something else going on.
It's so annoying, that lingering cough. I've been there. Mm-hmm. Are there treatments that can help make it go away quicker?
Yeah, so there's been a lot of research looking at medications, hey, is there, maybe we can use asthma medicine, maybe we can use this or that. And there have been big reviews of randomized controlled trials and stuff. The short answer is that there's no good evidence for treatment of post-infectious cough with medications. But if you think of, the types of medications, so studies have looked at asthma inhalers and even cortisone pills, which is a pretty big gun. They didn't really help unless, of course, the person has some underlying asthma. Cough syrups have been studied, cold medicines, cough medicines have been studied a lot. They've been shown to be not any better than placebo, and they can cause a lot of side effects, especially in older people, and they interact with a lot of different medications. So we generally just don't recommend using cough and cold medicines. Antibiotics have been studied as well. Remember, antibiotics don't treat cough. They don't even kill viruses. They only kill bacteria. So for sure, there's a role of antibiotics if you have that sort of bounce back illness, where you're getting better and then got way worse, new fever, chest x-ray shows you've got pneumonia. For sure, antibiotics are going to help with not the lingering cough. That now we're into a different diagnosis of a secondary bacterial infection. But really, there's no evidence that medications of various kinds will actually help to make that post-infectious cough go away faster, or really even minimize the cough much in the meantime.
I have a feeling you're just going to tell us we should just rest.
I mean, that's part of it for sure, right? So it's let your body kind of clean up the house, faster and better, because that cough is part of the cleanup process. So yeah, get plenty of rest. But there's a lot of other things too, especially because a lot of these infections happen in the winter. The air in our houses is dry. I don't need to tell anybody that right now. It's super dry, and breathing dry air can actually irritate the lining of the lungs, which can trigger more coughing. So putting a humidifier in your bedroom can really help to settle a cough, especially at night, which is usually when the cough is most bothersome. And then the same goes for nasal rinses, sinus rinses. They can help to settle down the inflammation. They can help to clean out some of the gunk that might still be in there, and they help to moisten everything up so that things settle down. Same with lozenges, just sucking on a lozenge, chewing gum, something like that. Helps to keep the throat a little bit more moist, keeps it from getting more irritated and triggering a cough. The one thing that you might want to watch out for is, a lot of lozenges are very powerful. They're really strong, and they've got like menthol and stuff, and sucking on those for a long time can actually irritate the lining of your throat and stuff even more. So you try to get a real gentle lozenge. The other thing that can help is gargling. Warm water, a cup of warm water, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 4 times a day. That's actually been shown to decrease the severity and length of time that the cough lasts. And then lastly, for older kids and adults, teaspoon of honey works even better than cough syrups at temporarily settling down that cough. And, a lot of people say, oh yeah, I'm doing that. I'm putting lemon and honey in some hot water and I'm sipping that. Mm-hmm. Sure, do that. That sounds great. But the research that was done on honey for cough is actually literally just a spoonful of honey. So you dip your spoon in the honey, you lick it off the spoon, you sort of let it kind of run down the back of your throat, and that's what helps. And it's temporary, but it's honey. It's great. It is super frustrating to have that lingering cough, but the silver lining is that this is post-infectious. You're not contagious anymore. The party is over. The germs are gone. It's just the cleanup is taking a while. And I think, it's humbling. It's 2025, and we always think, well, there's got to be a quick fix. There's got to be, some sort of pill that you can give me or something. No, some things just take time to get better. And this darn post-infectious cough is one of them.
All right, Dr. Barbaj, thank you.
My pleasure.
That was Information Radio's Marcy Marcusa speaking with House Dr. Raj Bhardwaj last week. He's an urgent care and emergency department doctor in Calgary. At 7:57, let's get the very latest from our CBC Winnipeg newsroom. Here's Megan.
Well, Winnipeg's emergency social services team had to help several people who were living in a building damaged by 2 fires yesterday afternoon. The first started around 1:30, but fire crews got that out quickly. But then the second started around 4 p.m. Conditions were so bad they had to use an aerial ladder to battle the blaze, but no one was hurt. And the Canadian Museum for Human Rights was at standing room only yesterday, with hundreds of people marking 3 years of war in Ukraine. More than a dozen people also stood outside waving Ukrainian flags, holding signs while singing and chanting. And we'll hear from some of those people who were there at 8:30.
All right. Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you.
We will also be reflecting on the 3-year anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine here on our show. We'll hear from a Ukrainian who came to Winnipeg to flee the war. That's coming up at 8:10. Quick traffic note for you. Southbound Israeli Bridge, we have a multi-vehicle collision blocking the curb lane. You can expect some big backups there. Cloudy and mild today with a chance of showers. Temperature steady near 4 degrees. We are currently at 4 degrees here in Winnipeg.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger sitting in for Tom Power. In their new sitcom, Canadian actors and writers Meredith McNeil and Jennifer Whalen play 2 women launching a new podcast while navigating the ups and downs of menopause. They'll tell you about their new show, Small Achievable Goals.
Where's Judy Bloom when you need her? Don't worry there, God, it's me, menopause.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your town, city, community, your country, your world, your news, your world tonight, every night, 7 days a week on CBC Radio 1, on demand on the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Marcia Young.
Russia's actions are nothing short of a direct attack against the rules-based international order.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau speaking at a meeting in Kyiv today. He and several world leaders are in Ukraine to mark 3 years of war. It was February 24th, 2022, when Russia launched its full-scale invasion against Ukraine. Today, several nations, including Canada, are reiterating their support for Ukraine. The CBC's Anna Cunningham has the latest from London.
We must do everything in our power to enable Ukraine to secure a just and lasting peace.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau speaking in Kyiv, joining European leaders, some in the room, others taking part remotely. Leaders including those from the Baltic and Nordic states to Germany, Spain, Switzerland, the UK and Japan. President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, warning why Ukraine matters.
It is not only the destiny of Ukraine that is at stake. It is Europe's destiny that is at stake.
This was a show of strength laden with urgency, as expressed by the Finnish President Alexander Stubb.
If we now allow Russia to do what it wants to do, in other words, stop the existence of a Ukrainian state, then it's not only Ukraine that has lost.
Britain today announcing new sanctions on Russia. Its Prime Minister Keir Starmer due in Washington Thursday. He joined the Kyiv meeting remotely from London.
Russia does not hold all the cards in this war.
Last week, President Trump said the opposite. Warnings today and support from world leaders in Kyiv will not only echo in Moscow, but also in Washington. Anna Cunningham, CBC News, London.
Russia's war in Ukraine will likely be a major part of a meeting today at the White House. U.S. President Donald Trump is welcoming French President Emmanuel Macron. It is the first of two high-profile meetings set this week in Washington that are expected to focus on Ukraine's future and Europe's security. The CBC's Cameron McIntosh joins me now from Washington. Cam, what can we expect during today's meeting?
So Emmanuel Macron is known to be someone that Trump listens to. He's even been called the Trump whisperer. They just get along. Now, it's expected he'll present a European plan for peace in Ukraine, which could include a European reassurance force of up to 30,000 troops who would deploy to Ukraine in the event of a peace deal. Now, that's an idea that's supported by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who says it would require U.S. support. Starmer will be here Thursday making a similar pitch. Now, this comes after plenty of dismay in Europe last week when U.S. officials met with Russian officials to try to get negotiations going on Ukraine. Neither Ukraine nor Europe were invited. Macron called an emergency meeting of European leaders in Paris. There's a lot of concern in Europe about offering Russia any concessions along with the future of its security alliances with the United States. So today, Macron will certainly be pushing for Europe to be at the table if peace talks do get going.
There is controversy over Donald Trump's recent comments about the war. He seems to blame the war on Ukraine, even calling President Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator.
Yeah, so Trump did walk back his blame comments a little bit or clarified them, basically saying, yes, Russia attacked, but went on to blame President Zelensky and former U.S. President Joe Biden for it. Overall, the Trump administration, though, certainly seems reluctant to point the finger at Russia, saying it's focused on negotiating a deal to end the war. Now, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was on Fox News Sunday. When asked why the administration won't acknowledge that Russia invaded Ukraine, he said this.
Standing here and saying, you're good, you're bad, you're a dictator, you're not a dictator, you invaded, you didn't, it's not useful, it's not productive. And so President Trump isn't getting drawn into that in unnecessary ways.
Now, President Trump has also implied that Russia felt threatened by the prospect of Ukraine joining NATO. That's a pretty common Russian talking point. At the UN today, there are two resolutions on ending the Ukraine war, one from the European Union, which identifies Russia as the aggressor, the other from the U.S., which does not. Russia, which is seeking legitimacy in all of this, says it supports the U.S. resolution.
Thank you, Cam.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Cameron McIntosh in Washington. Arctic sovereignty is becoming a growing concern with the current tension between Canada and the U.S. President Donald Trump continues to push for Ottawa to spend more on defense. The country's military presence in the north is also a concern for those living in Nunavut. It was brought up during the opening session of the Nunavut Legislative Assembly. The CBC's TJ Deer has more.
We really feel there's an opportunity.
After Nunavut's premier spoke on Radio 1's The Current about nation-building projects, an MLA had questions about one in their riding. On day one of the new session, Okumuit MLA Mary Kalikti wondered about the rising cost of a proposed deep seaport in Kikatajuak.
Can the minister indicate what commitments he has received from the federal government and other partners to obtain the additional funding?
Economic Development and Transportation Minister David Akiakok responded in Inuktitut, saying it's up to the federal finance minister. The premier had left question period early for a call with the first ministers. Another topic, the military's presence in Nunavut. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre had this suggestion.
Build Canada's first permanent Arctic base since the Cold War, CFB Iqaluit.
That's part of his plan to defend the Arctic. Iqaluit Manahayak MLA Adam Ahiak Lightstone wrote to the premier 3 days before that video was released. Lightstone is also advocating for a permanent base in the territory, but says a Nunavut regiment would also help with a major social issue.
So many of our youth that turn 18 do inevitably age in to income support, given the lack of employment opportunities and training opportunities in our communities.
While Arctic sovereignty is still expected to be discussed in the coming days, the territory's operating budget is set to be tabled later today. TJ Deer, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Pope Francis is being closely watched in hospital for a 10th day now. The Vatican says he is resting after a quiet night, but the pontiff remains in critical condition with pneumonia and early signs of kidney failure. Megan Williams is at the Vatican with the latest.
Last night, the Vatican said the Pope's condition was still critical, but that he hadn't had a respiratory crisis since Saturday, and that he was still receiving oxygen through nasal tubes. On Sunday, the Pope received 2 units of red blood cells, which helped boost his hemoglobin and stabilize his platelet levels. But tests revealed early signs of kidney failure. That doctors say they're keeping under control for now. The medical experts treating the Pope say the biggest danger he faces is sepsis, with the infection in his lungs traveling to other organs. The Pope was hospitalized on February 14th with bronchitis that turned into double pneumonia, forcing him to cancel appearances at Holy Jubilee year events. His recovery remains uncertain.
It's just very worrying. He seems to have been such a force for good. I don't know who will come next, and it's just very sad,
said this Australian in Rome for a work conference. The Vatican will issue a detailed update on the Pope's health later today. Megan Williams, CBC News, the Vatican.
The 4 remaining Liberal leadership candidates go head-to-head for the first time tonight. The French language debate is scheduled in Montreal. It's the first of 2 matchups in the short leadership race. And it's happening days after former candidate Ruby Dalla was kicked out of the race. A Liberal Party of Canada committee voted unanimously on Friday to disqualify her. As Olivia Stefanovic tells us, Dalla is now appealing her disqualification.
The fact that they have disqualified me clearly shows they did not want me on that debate stage.
The race to replace Prime Minister Justin Trudeau now tighter after the Liberal Party disqualified former MP Ruby Dalla.
And it was actually through, the CBC that I actually heard about the decision of the Liberal Party.
The decision came down late Friday. The Liberal Party found Dalla in breach of 10 violations involving election finances, all of which Dalla denies, leaving 4 candidates who will debate one another tonight for the first time.
It was just over a month ago that I entered the race.
Mark Carney is heading on stage with the most caucus support and fundraising. He will face off against former Liberal House Leader Karina Gould, former Liberal MP and Montreal businessman Frank Baylis, and former Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, who resigned from cabinet last December after Trudeau planned to replace her with Carney as finance minister. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
That is the latest from World Report. This month, we are asking you to follow World Report wherever you get your podcasts. It helps us reach new listeners and helps you stay on top of the day's big stories. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and on YouTube. I'm Margot Watt, sitting in for Marcy Marcusa. Coming up this half hour on the show, today marks 3 years since the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Manitoba has welcomed nearly 29,000 Ukrainians as of last year. Coming up, we'll check in with one of them about how she's doing now and what gives her hope for the future. Our mild weather is going to stick around for at least a couple of days. We'll have the latest on our forecast. And also, we'll update the drive-in this morning after a couple of trouble areas we've been hearing about earlier. You're with Information Radio, 89.3 FM, and on YouTube. But first, the very latest from our CBC Winnipeg newsroom. Here's Megan Ketchison.
Well, good morning. A Winnipeg man says he deserves a $2,500 electric vehicle credit after he was rejected by MPI. Blad Clowett bought a 2020 Ioniq earlier this year. When he applied for the province's rebate, he was rejected. He says it wasn't fair because he used MPI's online tool, which told him he was eligible. And we'll find out what MPI said coming up. And a Winnipeg couple is being remembered by their family as a brilliant and loving duo that touched the lives of many. Dawn and Ted Allen died after a fire destroyed their Fort Garry home in December. Both were journalists and worked in local media. And we'll have more at 8:30.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
The very latest now on Winnipeg weather. Here's Corey.
3 degrees right now in Winnipeg at the Forks. High today is 4. We're going to stick around there. It's going to dip down a little bit, though, to -3 overnight, then back up to 3 degrees tomorrow. Worth keeping in mind that it's going to be a bit windy today. A west wind, 40 kilometers, gusting to 60 today. So might be a bit of a, you might want to wear just something that kind of breaks that wind if you're out there on and about today. In terms of the commute, haven't heard of any major issues out there except for southbound Disraeli, where we got a call from Jason about a collision in the curb lane. That's kind of second hump right before it kind of turns into Main Street. So you can imagine there's some pretty big backups there. Heard about this about a half an hour ago. So if you have any updates for me on that, anything else you're seeing out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Today marks 3 years since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The province says as of December, Manitoba has welcomed nearly 29,000 Ukrainians. Anna Biliyaha came to Winnipeg in October of 2022. She has a 10-month-old son who's never been to his mother's homeland. Pleasure to have Anna with us this morning. Good morning. Can't hear you right now, but I think we're working on that to get your microphone working. Can you hear us now okay, Anna? Yeah, I think we're going to need... Can you hear me?
Oh,
now we can. Thank you. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
So other than a sound gremlin, how are you doing today and feeling on this day?
For us, it's not just a word, not just a date. It's something what changed our life totally, yes? Because... Yeah. Many times I ask it myself, what does it war mean for me exactly? Because war for a lot of people in the world, it's just a word. It's just some historical facts. It's just something on the map. Yes, we can see, for example, headlines in news, numbers in reports, and headlines in newspaper, but we cannot feel exactly sometimes because we are not there and we don't know what does it mean. You just sleep tonight and planning tomorrow, meet your client and pay your water bill and meet some friends, and just 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. at the morning you wake up and it is war. And you cannot even understand this totally for first time because it's big stress, it just our mental cannot provide what's going on. So of course for us, for all Ukrainians, it's not just a date, it's a number what totally changed our lives. For us, it's something when we say goodbye and we don't know we can see our parents or our closed one in the future or not. Sometimes when we say goodbye for forever. So yes, this date for us very tense, very stressful, but in other way around, it still shows that Ukraine have incredibly unity of the Ukrainian people for now, until now, in Manitoba, in other countries. It's just amazing because it's sad to say, but it's really unite Ukrainian people. This war, we start to be more friendly, more closer to each other.
I think probably a lot of people can't even imagine what it's like to live like that, what you just described. How would you describe what it's been like for you and your family?
First of all, I met war in Ukraine, and in this day, actually, I was visiting my mom and dad, and I met war exactly with my parents. So for us, it's something just like we cannot see each other whenever we want. We cannot spend a thankful day together. We cannot celebrate Christmas. We cannot just visit each other. Yes, and even like my mom or my dad, she cannot come and take her grandchild and just play with him and just enjoy this time. Time is so precious. Time is so important, and really, it's. Sometimes I just would like to ask people to appreciate what you have. If you have peace in your country, it's an amazing gift. You not need nothing more. Just believe me, it's amazing gift what we have. We can just sleep and wake up in the morning and have this blessing. We have blessing to live. We have blessing right now to have this news and talk with each other, yes? And we're in safe place. So it's big appreciation. And once more, I still very grateful for Canada, for Manitoba and Winnipeg in general, to accept me, to accept my family, to give me a chance to create my life and for my son to be in a safe place.
What's it been like finding that community here?
Community in Winnipeg are just incredible, amazing, really. For these 3 years, every year I get more and more friends here. We have some meetings, we have some play games together. We just sometimes meet each other, just for a cup of coffee. In Ukraine, what I said before, as I mentioned, we do not have this close friendship with each other, yes, because every of us have their own life. But here, something what happened with us, it make us closer and closer. Ukrainian community here are just amazing. And a lot of people like Oksana Burchak and Dmitro Vasil Malik, they really help Ukrainians to survive here, to feel more comfortable, because for us, it's not planning immigration, yes, because it's different when you plan and planning your immigration and when you just leave your country by force, yes. So they help and they cooperate our community. And really, I'm so happy because I choose this province once more, because here a lot of Ukrainian people and it's just like my family here. So thank you so much. Community really amazing, and it's unite us, each other, to be more and more closer to each other.
So you have found a new family here. You still have family in Ukraine. How are they doing?
Every day, situation in Ukraine going worse and worse. And I just tired to see this news because someone just said, there is Mr. Trump going to meet Mr. Putin and they will going to decide something about Ukraine. Actually, Ukraine is first country which should stay and talk about their destiny, about their people. So my parents still in Ukraine. My father still cannot cross the border because he's not 60 years old, and I didn't see him more than 2 years, like around 2 years. My mom just visited me on October for 1 month, just to see her grandson.
Oh, that must have been lovely for you.
Yeah, oh my God. We met in the airport. I was cried a lot and my mom cried a lot. And she really was happy every day here because she has this opportunity, yes, and because of Canadian government make for Ukrainian visa like easier to get this visa, yes, so our parents can visit us sometimes, so it's amazing stuff. But other way around, Ukraine now in very bad shape, and it's very difficult situation because Russia still occupies about 20% of Ukrainian territory, and intense fighting continues every day. Just like 2 days ago, it was very hard night attack around the whole Ukraine, not just for part of Ukraine, the whole Ukraine. Sometimes my mom said, I walking around, I thought it just sound like birds, but it's not birds, it's drones, drones. And every day we call our parents or our friends, and sometimes we didn't know if they will answer the phone. They say these things about it. We don't know. We just wake up, we call them, and who knows? They can answer or they cannot.
How hopeful are you that this could be over someday soon?
Mr. Trump is a good businessman, and I think he just need for Russia sanction going down and down. He, I think, would like to trade around the world and Russia be part of this trade. So I think even if Mr. Trump will part of that war going to finish, it will good for his business. It will good for his trading in the world. But it's not about that he likes Ukrainians or he like Ukraine. It's just about business. Actually, it's good for us. Even if it's about business, thanks God, we just need that war stop. We just need that people stop to die every day. Because for us, it's war, yes. Some people every day losing their fathers, their children, their mothers, friends. So yes, for me right now, hope, because I saw some news about very big project in Bukovel. So there is a lot of people who going to invest around the world, around $4 million. So it gives me a hope that if someone really decide to invest money in Ukraine right now, that maybe they know something else, something more, I mean. And it gives me a hope. I pray for it every day. It gives me a hope, and for all Ukrainian people, that war going to finish. Just finish or froze. I don't know how to explain, but for us, it's just very important that people stop to die. Our soldiers stop to die. Our parents be in the safe place, and we can just visit our parents. Yes, some people who immigrate 3 years ago, they have adapted now for another countries, so maybe they will not back to Ukraine after the war is finished, but at least they will have opportunity to go and see their loved one. So it's give a hope, yeah.
Anna, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All the
Thank you
best.
so much.
All the best to you and your family.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. That is Anna Biliyaha, who came to Winnipeg in October of 2022.
Whether it's breaking news from around the world, across the country, or in your own hometown, it's all at your fingertips on the CBC News app. Get the top stories from where you live under the local tab, or watch video clips, live events, and the national on your smartphone or tablet. Get all the news you want, when you want it, where you want it, with the CBC News app. Download the app for free today.
It is 8:24. You're with Information Radio here on CBC. I'm Margot Watt in for Marcy Marcusa. She's back tomorrow. Leif Volleback is a multi-instrumentalist from Montreal. Inspired by rapper Kendrick Lamar, he decided to release a cover of one of Lamar's rap songs in a different kind of style. So let's have a listen. This is Leif Volleback with Love.
Give me a run for my money. There's nobody, no one to outrun me. So give me a run for my money. Sipping bubbly, feeling lovely. Living lovely. Just love me. I wanna be with you. Hey, I wanna be with. I wanna be with you. Hey, I wanna be with. I wanna be with you. Hey, I wanna be with. Didn't ride blade on curve, would you still love me? Made up my mind at work, would you still love me? Keep it 100, rather you trust me than to love me. Keep it a whole 100, don't got you, got nothing. We got something, no assumptions. We got something, we gon' function. Feeling like Tyson with it, knocked out twice, I'm with it. Only for the night, I'm kidding. Yeah, only for life, only for life, only for life, let's get it. Hit that shoulder lean, I know it's coming over me. Backstroke overseas, I know what you need. Already on 10, all money come in, all feeling go out. This feeling don't drought, this party won't end. Didn't ride blade on curve, would you still love me? Made up my mind at work, would you still love me? Keep it 100, rather you trust me than to love me. Keep it a whole 100, don't got you, got nothing. Give me a run for my money. There's nobody, no one to outrun me. So give me a run for my money. Sipping bubbly, feeling lovely. Living lovely. Just love me. I wanna be with you. I wanna be with. I wanna be with you. Hey, I wanna be with. I wanna be with you. Hey, I'm on the way. We ain't got no time to waste. Popping your gum on the way, mine the way. Don't wanna pressure you none. I want your blessing today. Oh, by the way, open the door by the way. Told you that I'm on the way. I'm on the way. I know connection is vague. Pick up the phone for me, babe. Damn it, we jamming. Bad attitude from your nanny. Curves in your hips from your mammy. Remember, gardenia, I took the studio camera. I know Tupper will be bad at me. I had to do it. I want your body, your music. I bought the big one to prove it. Look what you made. Told you that I'm on the way. I'm like an exit away. Yeah. Didn't ride blade on curve, would you still love me? Made up my mind at work, would you still love me? Keep it 100, rather you trust me than to love me. Keep it a whole 100, don't got you, got nothing. Give me a run for my money. There's nobody, no one who will run. Give me a run for my money. Sipping bub, feeling love. Living love. Love me. I wanna be with you. 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 I wanna be with you.
There's an artist out of Montreal, Leif Volleback, and that's a cover of Kendrick Lamar's song, Love. Just ahead of CBC News at 3:30, updating you on a couple of things. We were telling you earlier about a collision on southbound Disraeli. That has been cleared now, so should be smooth going there. Weather-wise, we have quite a mild day compared to what we've been experiencing lately. Increasing cloud throughout the day, slight chance of showers this afternoon, a little windy at times, and a high of +4. Right now we're at 3 degrees here in Winnipeg. Tonight will be cloudy, down to -7, and then tomorrow another cloudy and relatively mild day with a high of +3. Still to come on the program, we have news. We'll take a look at weather, of course, give you a heads up on what's coming up on The Current on their program this morning. And if you do have any traffic calls for us as we wind up the drive, feel free to give us a call. That number is 788-3093. And if you have any comments on any of the stories we've been covering here on the program today, as always, we love to hear from you. Our listener line is 204-788-3205. Time now for the CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg. At 8:30, partly cloudy and 3 cloudy with a chance of showers later today, windy and a high of 4. The Ukrainian-Canadian Congress of Manitoba says many Ukrainian newcomers are running into challenges with their paperwork. It's happening as they mark today's 3rd-year anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The UCC's Ostap Skripnik says people who came to Canada under the emergency visa program have until the end of March to comply for the extensions. But he says some newcomers, especially men of military age, are having trouble renewing their passports, something they need for the Canadian documents.
We met with Minister Miller, the immigration minister, a couple of weeks ago when he was in Winnipeg, and I think they're willing to look at solutions within the law or within the regulations to have some understanding of people have these little timing hiccups, let's put it this way.
He says Ukrainian newcomers may also find it harder to become permanent residents. The federal government is cutting overall numbers by 90,000 in 2025 compared to last year. Hundreds of people stood shoulder to shoulder yesterday at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights to mark the 3 years of war in Ukraine. Vasily Krasnik and his wife were among those in attendance at the rally. They became permanent residents here in Manitoba, but Kushlik says his thoughts are always with those who are back home.
I would like to see my family and my friends because a lot of my friends are already dead and some of them alive and fight for my country and for everybody there. So I want to just see them and just say thank you for everything.
The event featured speeches by Premier Wab Kinew, MPs Terry Duguid and James Bazan, as well as Deputy Mayor Marcus Chambers. Nearly 30,000 Ukrainians have arrived and settled in Manitoba since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Police and fire crews are still at the corner of Selkirk and Salter after 2 fires in the same building. It started around 1:30 in the afternoon when the mixed-use building with residential upstairs and businesses downstairs. Everyone managed to get out safely before crews arrived. Firefighters put out the fire inside the building and people were allowed to return to their suites. But then a few hours later, about 4 p.m., firefighters were back at the same building. They started fighting the fire from the inside but had to move outside as conditions deteriorated. Aerial ladders were brought in to fight the fire. No one was hurt. The city's emergency social services team is helping those who were displaced. A Winnipeg man says he's out nearly $2,500 after his electric vehicle rebate application was rejected. Brad Clowett bought a used 2020 Ioniq earlier this year. Before he bought it, he made sure it qualified for the province's rebate by using MPI's online eligibility checker. To his surprise, when he submitted the paperwork for the $2,500 rebate, it was rejected.
When it totally is clear and concise on the webpage that you use this tool to see if you're eligible for the rebate. So that was extremely disappointing.
A spokesperson for MPI says the application was rejected because vehicles must be less than 4 years old when you buy it. They said they'll consider adding more information about the criteria to its eligibility checker. A Winnipeg couple is being remembered by their family as a brilliant and loving duo that touched the lives of many. Dawn and Ted Allen died after a fire destroyed their Fort Garry home in December. Both were journalists who worked in local media. They met in South Africa in the late 1950s and were together as a couple ever since. Mac Allen is their youngest son.
You know, they say the passion of relationships wanes over time, but for them, they were passionate about each other's minds and points of view, and they could talk for 3 to 6 hours every day about what books they were reading and what they had thought about the world event that had just occurred. And sometimes they agreed, sometimes they didn't, but they were endlessly interested in the other's point of view. And that's what made them special.
Ted and Dawn are leaving behind 2 other daughters, 3 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild. The Screen Actors Guild were handed out last night in Los Angeles. This year's ceremony was streamed on Netflix, and a movie about the selection of a new pope took top prize.
And the winner goes to Conclave.
The Vatican thriller Conclave wins Best Film Cast. The movie stars Ralph Fiennes, Isabella Rossellini, Stanley Tucci, and John Lithgow. The win could be a sign of next Sunday's Best Picture race for the Oscars being wide open. Meantime, Jane Fonda got the Screen Actors Guild Lifetime Achievement Award. And that's the CBC News from Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, Megan, thanks very much.
Thank you.
It was very nice to see Timothée Chalamet win for A Complete Unknown for his depiction of Bob Dylan. I think that's the first major award he's had this award season of all the big awards. And what a great performance he gave in that film. Corey's here with a last look at traffic.
Yes, actually very quiet commute overall today. There was that issue on southbound Israeli that has now been cleared, but haven't heard of any major issues. 204-788-3093 is the number to call.
All right, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And thank you to all the people who put the show together. I'll start with Corey Funk, wearing so many hats. May McKillop in our studio here this morning. Jim Agapito. Oh, I'm going to get heck for that later. Kevin Nipotapo, who's our YouTube producer. Chidi Ikuma, Kelkadon Mulugeta, and Donna Carrero. Thanks to everyone for your hard work. And sorry it all ended with me. I'm Margot Watt. Great to be here. And Marcy's back tomorrow. And The Current is up next.